How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be out you.
Won't anybody help us? What are we running for? When there's nowhere we can run to anymore. Can't afford to be innocent. Stand up and face the enemy. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible. And with the power of conviction, there is no sacrifice. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible.
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
Can we grow up a little bit and
Alt
not
Girl
be
sent $200.
retarded?
Have you
Please.
seen the work of Karlyn Borysenko? Anti-commie cult leader and is obsessed with looking at what actual far-left communists are talking about and organizing today, infiltrating them. They infiltrated the universities, schools, media. She has the receipts to back it up. Primary source evidence. Infestation is dire and she calls Republicans idiots eating slop. Agree.
Thank you for the big super chat. Yeah, oh, I know Karlyn B. She's solid. She's funny. I
The
like
great
her.
noticer sent $200.
Literally.
So
Not
it's,
Ian.
it's not because I haven't dangled my junk into the combat zone on purpose to get some camera footage, but that's the big part of what's the
Is
problem.
that what you call reporting?
Go
and live
under, if
streaming?
you're going to do it,
Yeah,
go
seriously.
undercover. Otherwise you're wearing a hunk of meat in a lion's den. Nick Shirley, I love you. Take care of yourself, man. Karlyn Borysenko went undercover. Do stuff like that. Like if you want to expose this thing, don't pariah, please.
But Ian, here's and I agree with you to an extent.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Happy Monday. Hey, is Reagan here? Is Reagan here? This is like Reagan's day. I don't know what's going on. I know it's not Reagan's birthday, but this is like Reagan has totally ruled this day from beginning to end. Reagan's here. And the reason I say that is you know, one of Reagan's favorite people in the world is Brian Bean. And just a couple hours ago, Brian Bean was part of a 2-person panel about revolutionary abolition against cops and capitalism. And I was like, you know what? Listen, we need to reward Reagan for her service today. Because not only is Reagan obsessed with Brian Bean, and Reagan, of course, is the number 2 in command in the community. If anything were to ever happen to me, first off, I didn't do it. I did not kill myself. But secondly, if anything happens to me, Reagan is in charge of leading the vision of the community, whether she likes it or not. And I have to say, last night for movie night, when like we were watching a movie night last night innocently, okay? And Reagan says in the chat, she's like, you know, guys, I think I'm gonna duck out. There's some clips that I want to make. And Reagan runs one of the Twitter accounts. You can see this is it. Reagan's already gotten permanently banned on running one Twitter account for me, even though I told them she wasn't trying to impersonate me. But apparently Twitter doesn't really give a flying fuck. Anyway, so Reagan has this Twitter account that she runs, where she shares clips of my work, and she makes awesome clips. And I definitely recommend that everyone follow Reagan. But when Reagan, I thought Reagan was going to make a clip about, you know, like something related to the left. I wasn't really thinking too much about it. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. That certainly has been known to happen. But Reagan was not, in fact, making a clip about the left. Reagan was making a clip exposing all of the conservative grifters who stole my content and pretended it was theirs and shared it. And she just made the most beautiful fucking clip, literally calling all of these retards out. Like Reagan, she did. Reagan went for blood in this clip. Reagan did not hold back. And so, like, it's so funny because this morning before Victor went to work, he was like, Karlyn, can you go do this errand for me? And I was like, sure, Victor, I can go do that errand for you. And so I got up today and I had kind of a normal one. I took a shower. I blow dried my hair. I put on clothes. I went outside. I was among the people. I ran an errand. And as all this is happening, my Twitter is starting to get lit the fuck up with the fact that Sarah Fields, who's a conservative grifter on Twitter, is like screaming about me because she's so pissed off at this clip that Reagan posted that Sarah Fields on Twitter has just been unloading all fucking day. And I'm just gonna show you, like, I'm like, what the fuck is even going? I'm at the mall and I'm like, what the fuck is even going on? And this is Sarah Fields. Not only did Karlyn complain when people embedded her video, which is normal behavior on X, and still credits her, I actually didn't complain about that. She also shared a publicly available video that could be easily found anywhere. Except, Sarah, you dumb cunt, you didn't find it because you don't know how to do this stuff, you stupid bitch. You have no idea where to look for this information. I love that this is now the conservative line. This is now the conservative reason for completely dismissing my work. You guys ready for it? Here is why conservatives won't share my work exposing the left. All Karlyn is doing is finding public content and posting it. She's just grifting. This isn't that big of a deal. If we steal her content, you know, we're basically doing the same thing she's doing because all she's doing is watching publicly available content. Except Sarah and the rest of you conservative retards, it's publicly available content that you idiots don't know about, haven't bothered to watch, don't know where to find, don't know how to understand. All you retards do is steal from people like me that spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours a week finding this content, analyzing this content, clipping this content, and then you retards come in and steal directly from me, you dumb bitch. And then you go, we're not doing anything different than what you're doing. Only literal retards think so, Sarah. Only literal retards think that you are doing the same thing I'm doing. I mean, but like, obviously she's not the highest IQ bitch in the world. So I guess what can we really expect? Sarah goes on. Some of us, like me, who don't want to be affiliated with her pedo-defending nonsense. This is also their line. They say that because I correctly pointed out that grooming in public schools in the way it's actually done is actually protected by the First Amendment, as evidenced by the fact that 0, and I mean 0, conservative parents have sued the school district over grooming their kids. There has never been one in the years and years and years. Thank you, Deets, for the super chat. Really do appreciate it. In the years and years and years and years that conservatives have been saying, Karlyn's a pedo because she correctly said that grooming in schools is protected by the First Amendment, there has not been one single case of any conservative family in the entire country suing their kids' school because their kids were groomed at school. And do you know what that means? It means either conservatives are too lazy to do anything about the thing that they're screaming about constantly every day, or it means there is not a single fucking lawyer who will take that case, because every single thing that is happening in schools is actually protected by the First Amendment, and that's been ruled on by the courts over and over and over and over and over again. Conservatives don't want you to know that. They just want to call me a pedophile all over the internet, even though I've never been arrested for anything. I've never been charged with anything. I've never been to jail for anything. I don't even fucking like kids. Keep your kids as far away from me, actually, as humanly possible. I think that'd be pretty great. Like, I don't like kids at all. But no, I am a pedophile for correctly analyzing a situation and explaining this to conservative retards, and all they do is go, pedo! That is all they know how to do. That's literally all they know how to do, which is rather ironic, since how many conservatives are in the Epstein files and they aren't going after any of them or calling them pedophiles? I'm sorry, how many right-leaning politicians that these people suck up to, not even just in the United States, how about also in Israel? How many politicians that these people suck up to for clout and money and status? How many of them have been named in the Epstein files and they never talk about it? Oh, but I'm the pedo, even though I've never been arrested. I've never been charged with anything. I've never been to jail. I'm not listed in the fucking Epstein files. I don't even like kids. Sure, Sarah. Sure. And by the way, why does this dumb bitch think I want to be associated with her? This is the other thing. These people are always like, Karlyn burned bridges. Oh, yeah, you're goddamn right I did. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, Sarah, you dumb cunt. Why on earth would I want to be associated with any of these people? Why on earth would I want to be allies with Sarah Fields, who is an intellectually dishonest grifter who can't do her own research and just steals from other people? What value does Sarah Fields offer me? Nothing. What value? Like, can anyone name anyone of value that I have ever burned a bridge with? I'm asking. Here's your opportunity. I burned so many bridges. Name one person of value that could offer anything to me that I've burned a bridge with. I have burned bridges. I will fucking light bridges on fire and burn them to the fucking ground. And every single time I burn a bridge, it's with someone who offers no value at all, who only causes problems, who is a fucking grifter that's just going to steal my work or try to take advantage of me in some way so that they can make money and gain more clout and status. There are literally zero fucking examples. And again, if you need to leave it, if you need to think about it, leave a comment later. You guys let me know. is there any single person that I have ever burned a bridge with that turned out to be a really high value person that really we missed out on an opportunity to align with? There is no one. Kazmar's been around this community a long ass time. She has seen it all. She's been here through all the different bridge burnings that's happened. There has not been one single person of value that I have ever burned a bridge with, and I have no regrets over burning bridges with people who have no intrinsic value or worth and just want to feed outrage addictions all over the internet because they have nothing else to offer. Thanks to Ruchi for the member chat. Bride of Charlie is taking a break today. Candace Owens is discussing the Iran war on today's episode. So Friday's happy hour will be, well, that's good news. That's good news. Oh yeah, right side rebel. Yeah. You got me there. You got me there. Let's see. She has burned so many bridges and exposed herself so efficiently as a grifting idiot who thinks presenting porn to children is free speech and real conservatives want nothing to do to her. By porn for children, what Sarah Fields means is a Sam Smith concert that no one had to bring their child to and wasn't porn. So Sarah Smith, what the fuck am I saying? Sarah Fields, the evil Zionist cunt, Sarah Fields, thinks that the definition of porn is a Sam Smith concert that no one had to bring their fucking kids to. Also, I'm pretty sure there was no one even naked at that concert. And listen, Sarah, I know that you take liberties with everything because you're a stupid dumb cunt that can't actually achieve anything on its own merits. But someone doing a dance you don't like in a costume you don't like at a concert you don't have to go to is not actually pornography. And if no parent is required to bring their kids to that concert, then I don't give a flying fuck what people do. If no one's required to be there, then no one is required to fucking be there. The problem is that Sarah Fields wants to cancel everyone who doesn't follow her fucking Zionist-controlled narrative because, again, she's too dumb to achieve intellectually. She has to do this. She keeps going. Also, let's be honest, she saw people using the clip and thought, oh, I can get clicks by pretending this was a social experiment. I'm sorry. One in the chat, if you guys were here the day that we found that clip and I said in real time on the internet, I'm going to use this clip to trick conservatives into reading on the internet and it's going to be funny and we're going to laugh at them. One in the chat, if you were here when literally that happened live, which is, of course, the day before Sarah Fields knew about the clip, because Sarah Fields only knew about the clip because we found the clip and saw the clip and clipped the clip and shared the clip, and it all came from us. And then afterwards, after it was already going viral all over Twitter, I clipped the longer clip from the stream where I flat out said in real time, we're doing a little social experiment here because conservatives are retarded and this is going to be funny. So there is your intellectually honest grifter class right there. And Sarah's been reading all over the internet, and she's also reading it at other people, like just make shit not suck. Like, I mean, I think that's a pretty simple request, make shit not suck. And she's even like retweeting him. I couldn't care less about a pedo lover's experiment, but if you're gonna talk about me, at least get my hair color correct. Her hair color is probably gray, by the way. Can we be honest about this? Sarah, we know you dye your hair. Like, come on. Like, obviously you fucking dye your... That's you? Awesome. Well done. But I have to say, Reagan found things to put in this video. That I didn't even know happened. I had no idea. Sarah said the reason that Sarah Fields is so upset about this video is that Reagan had a whole Sarah Fields section in it. And in that section, hey, did you guys know that when we originally exposed Sarah Fields for being a massive retarded grifter on the internet, do you know she literally told me to kill myself? Listen, I've told you guys for years that I was gang stalked by a horde of unhinged idiots. Thank you so much for the super chat, Nuri, too. I seem to remember a time when Sarah Fields was complaining about on Twitter about libs of TikTok stealing her work. Well, this is what happens when you're an intellectually dishonest grifter. Yeah, you really did. Honestly, I had no idea she ever said this. I really was not paying attention at all. Not paying attention at all. But I told you guys, I've said this from the very beginning. Years ago, I had a group of people that was gang stalking me every day of my life, smearing me, defaming me, spreading all this bullshit on the internet about me. Of course, Jew right in the center of it. Of course, doxed my college boyfriend from 20 years ago, dragged him all over the internet. W's to Cynthia in the chat. Thank you so much, my dear. Really appreciate you. And I learned after being harassed every day of my life for 2 straight years by these people that what they were doing, and I know this because someone defected from their group and they came and told me, what they were doing was meeting every single week to discuss different ways to harass me, discuss different ways to defame me. They were reaching out to influencers, sharing fake content with them and photoshopped images and all this bullshit to try to get people to make these YouTube videos about me. That's why you see so many crazy YouTube videos about me from like 4 or 5 years ago, because there was actually a group of people who every single week they were literally meeting to strategize, how do we silence Karlyn on the internet? Well, someone I know got involved in that. Thank you, Cynthia. Round 2. W's to Cynthia for that. W's to Deets for that. I appreciate it. You guys rock. So someone defected from this group. And he came to me and he told me all this information. There were other people that defected too, but there was one main source that gave me the most pertinent piece of information. And he said, after about a year of being involved with this group, Cynthia, for real? W's. Triple W's for Cynthia. Cynthia, you rock. Thank you for being such a fucking legend and a champion. So after about a year of being involved with this group, this person defected. And he said the reason that he defected was he went to them and he said, I thought we were going to be doing something different. I didn't think we were going to be just harassing Karlyn forever and ever and ever. What is the goal here? When are you guys going to stop harassing her? And do you know what the answer was? The answer was, we will stop when she is dead. That was the stated goal. That was the stated goal of this group of classical liberal retards who had been grifting on the leaving the left and being MAGA thing. Their stated goal, because they were jealous that I got more famous than them and built a larger platform than them, was to literally harass me and defame me and smear me until I killed myself. So you'll have to pardon me if I don't find it to be particularly funny or amusing when people on Twitter, like this evil fucking toxic cunt, go out of their way to tell me to kill myself. Because that is their goal. It's not just their goal with me. It's their goal with anyone like me. It's their goal with Nick Fuentes. It's their goal with Elijah Schaefer. It's their goal with Jake Shields. It's their goal with Myron Gaines. And I don't even like Myron Gaines all that. I'm not like defending him. Literally it's their goal with Tucker Carlson. It's their goal with Megyn Kelly. Literally, the stated goal of these people is to get you to kill yourself or to spin up enough outrage against you that someone goes and does the deed for you. I've long since accepted that there is a very real possibility that some psycho from the internet, from this group of people, is going to show up at my door with a gun. I've long since accepted that, but we gotta stop. We gotta stop. Holy shit, old sub. Holy shit, bro. 50 channel memberships from old sub Sailor. Massive, 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 massive W's. Old sub Sailor. Oh my God. That is like overwhelming, bro. Really appreciate it. You're so generous. And I cannot thank you enough for your support. Yeah, the king of the chat. If Cynthia is the queen of the chat, old sub Sailor is certainly the king. But here's the good news about this whole thing, guys. There was a time when I actually did get very close to killing myself. That was very, very real. In the midst of that gang stalking thing, I got very deeply depressed. And I really thought, I was actively thinking about, is there any other way to stop this than to just end it? I really was. I got through it. I came back. I had an amazing community of people. Cynthia. W's in the chat to Cynthia. Thank you so much, my dear. I really appreciate it. The reason I was able to get through it is I have such an amazing community of people. And there are people in this chat right now. Yeah, there were times when my own community had to struggle session me to get me to not give up. And now we're so lucky and we're so fucking blessed because this is our year. This is it. We have broken through. It is now universally accepted that I am the very best at what I do in the fucking country. No one can even come close to me. And even the people that hate me know this. Like, really think about this. The reason that no one ever argues with me intellectually is because they know they can't. Even the people that hate me will admit there is literally no one better than me doing what I do. Our content is breaking through. The community is stronger than ever. I'm stronger than ever. And you know what, guys? The darkest night of the soul can be our greatest period of growth. The dark night of the soul is when you reach your rock bottom. There is like nowhere to go but up. And I went through a couple years of a dark night of the soul, and it taught me a lot, and I suffered a lot. And thank God I made it through, because it really could have gone the other way. I really do mean that. But in coming back from that, and in building what I have, and in doing what I've done, and in having the fucking greatest community of people on the internet that have been there all the time, we made a fuck ton of progress in the last year and a half. And we're only going up, baby. We are only going up. You know, astrologically, you guys know I'm into astrology, whether or not you believe that. Astrologically, today is the turning point of everything for Aries like me. 1 second. My word, oh my word. 2026 is ours? Yeah. Guys, it's not Aries season yet. It's not Aries season yet. But today is the closing of a 10-year cycle. What is happening now with Aries? I'm going to try to explain this as simply as possible. Hang on. What is happening right now with Aries is that we are closing out a 10-year cycle. What is happening now astrologically happens once every 10 years. And what this means practically, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really do appreciate that. What this means on a practical level, as if astrology is practical, but just scroll with me for a second, is that literally all the bullshit that I've been through for the last several years, I'm about to get payback on all of it. On fucking all of it. W's in the chat for Cynthia. 5 more channel memberships. Cynthia, you rock! So all of the pain, all of the grief, all of the depression, all of the hurt, all of the toxicity, all of the struggle, I am about to get paid back for every single thing that I've endured. All of the work that we've put in over the last several years to build this community, to create a leftist and an intelligence operation studying the far left that literally no one has. What we have isn't perfect yet, but we've done more than anyone on the fucking internet to track, analyze, understand, and predict the behaviors of the far left. No one else is doing what we're doing. And so people like Sarah Fields can cry all over Twitter and say, All Karlyn does is watch videos of publicly available content. We do the things that literally no one else does. You're an Aries 2 old sub? Well, that must be why we get along so much. I really do appreciate that. So this is our years, guys. And I just want people to know, anytime you see evil cunts like this, feel free to argue with them. Feel free to fight them. Feel free to tell them to fuck off. Feel free to do whatever you want. Ignore them entirely. But I just really want everyone to know, we are never letting bitches like this get in the way of what we are doing again. They sidelined me for literally years. They tried their best to silence me. They defame me to this day, up and down the internet. And they do all this because I do the thing that none of them are capable of doing. I create original content on the internet. I do the very best analysis of the left on the internet. I know more about what's going on than any other fucking person covering this topic on the internet. Yeah, we all have to realize, and this is true. We won. The reason she's kicking and screaming like a dying fucking animal is because we won. Not just me. We won. That bitch and her kind lost. They are on their way out. And guys, this is true of all of the Zionists on Twitter that are currently kicking and screaming. Like Joel Berry saying that you need to gatekeep people, or James Lindsay being another dumb fuck on the internet, or any of the politicians like Dan Bongino, or for failed former FBI director. Like any of these people that are kicking and screaming about, we've got to kick all these people out of our movement. How bad movements are. You're April 18th. I'm April 12th. Not too far away. Not too far away. Yup. Awesome. See, I attract the Aries to my community. We understand each other. Aries like other Aries. Aries just don't like other people. We do what none of these people can do, and that is what sets this community apart. And you guys are the fucking best. I really appreciate all the support you've given me. And that's why I no longer worry at all when evil bitches like this run their mouths on Twitter, because at the end of the day, all they have is their own toxicity to stew in. We cannot expect any better of these people. This is what they are. But what we can do is make fun of them and expose the reality as it is. And Reagan did that expertly in this clip. I encourage everyone to watch it. You can find it on Twitter. I did upload it to YouTube as well. You can find it there. You got censored for calling Sarah Fields a bitch? Oh no. Oh no. Cynthia, thank you so much for the super chat. I'm a Scorpio with an Aries daughter and an Aries sister. You can imagine. Oh, I bet that was fun, Cynthia. I bet that was a fun time for you. I bet that, like, Cynthia's like the black cat filing her nails. That's what Cynthia is. Scorpio's like the black cat filing its nails. Man. In other news, I just have to share this. Because of course Carrie Smith is tweeting about me today, and Carrie Smith is one of the retards that goes. Carrie Smith is actually the original person that started the gang stalking campaign against me. If you want to know about the gang stalking campaign against me that I mentioned earlier, you can find information for that at survivincarriesmith.substack.com, where I documented the entire origin of the gang stalking affair, starting from the very beginning of what the fuck is even going on. Why is this crazy woman obsessed with me? So I'm not going to go into the whole backstory. I've done the whole backstory a bunch of times. Yup, Carrie's real name is Karen. You can't make this shit up. But I have to show you this because this is like the funniest fucking thing that Carrie has ever tweeted. So Carrie tried to make herself famous for basically being someone who left the left. And of course, I got in the way of her plans because I was actually an authentic person who left the left, and I ended up getting really famous. And Carrie was really jealous. This is all back in 2020 because Carrie wanted to be the spokesperson for the woman who left the left, but it ended up being me. So sorry, Carrie. Too bad, so sad. But Carrie really tried to chug along. And Carrie really tried to be the one to help people who are deprogramming themselves from the cult of the left to see the light. And Carrie became the therapist for a lot of these people. I swear to God. Carrie sees herself as some sort of therapist for people who are deprogramming from the leftist cult. Well, now, because there's no more money in getting people to leave the left, guys. Has anyone noticed, by the way, has anyone noticed that the right isn't even trying to get people to leave the left at this point? When I came into this, there was the walkaway movement. The walkaway movement now doesn't even do anything except Brandon tweets clickbait content on Twitter, and that's basically it. There is no effort to actually get people to leave the left anymore. So, of course, because there's no longer an effort for people to leave the left anymore, Carrie can't make any money or gain any clout for being someone that helps deprogram people from the leftist cult because there's no money in that anymore. People have just given up. Like, it's over. And that's actually probably a good inclination because even though my story was real, a lot of these stories just aren't. And you can tell them really easily once you get used to it. So now, because Carrie can't grift on that anymore, now Carrie wants to be a therapist for parents of children with woke right inclinations. This is the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen. I know the text is a little bit small on my screen, but I had to get the whole screenshot in there because that meme is just so cringe. But let me read you what this says. This is something Carrie posted on Twitter the other day. I about lost my shit. Carrie writes, have your kids flirted with the woke right and then ultimately rejected it? Have you been a part of the woke right cult and then left it behind? I want to talk to you. If so, please reach out via DM or email. For years now, I've been hearing from parents who have lost their kids to the woke left cult, and also talking to people who have left that cult, like myself. There are so many examples of people leaving it. But for the past year, I've now also been hearing from parents who fear they have lost their kids to the woke right cult, or at the very least, see the kids being seduced by it. I want to hear the success stories. Who was in it and left it? Maybe you, your sibling. Drop me a line and thank you. And then she's got this fucking cringe meme where she's given everyone a name. Taliban Tucker, Trailer Park Whore for Marjorie Taylor Greene, Cancer Owens, Massive Grit. Like, this is like you want to talk about the left. Owen Schroyer is Oven Schroyer. Like, you want to talk about the left camp meme? You want to talk about the fucking left camp meme? I mean, what the fuck is that? That is one of the most cringe fucking boomer memes I've ever seen in my life. And Carrie's like, I will be a therapist if you or someone you love has been pulled into the woke right cult. Like, and not to be outdone, I have this clip of James Lindsay talking about the woke Reich being defeated. Hang on.
Can this be defeated? And are they struggling?
Yeah, so I mean, with Iran and everything that's happening there, they're using this as a humongous wedge. They used Israel since October 7th as a humongous wedge, and now they're using this conflict in Iran. They tried during Operation Midnight Hammer when Trump bombed the nuclear sites previously last year to do the same thing. The goal, in my opinion, there is to fragment the American right, to break apart even solidarity among American Protestants, but also their friendship with American Catholics and Mormons and everybody else, to break that to pieces and then end up with Democrats getting power, and then to come along and say, this is so desperate, we need to reorganize, we need to go forward, and to make themselves the biggest center of mass so that we replace the existing Republican Party with their version of a new Republican Party that's very radical and Duginist.
Now, unironically, James Lindsay's actually right about this. Yeah, James Lindsay's absolutely right. I think Nick Fuentes wants to fracture the Republican Party. I think Nick Fuentes wants to convince as many people as possible to not vote Republican. He certainly got me on that. I am 100% on Nick's team on that. And the purpose of this is to make them lose. This is a perfect freeze frame, by the way. The purpose of convincing people not to vote for the Republicans is so they lose the fucking midterms. And to keep them losing until the GOP as it currently stands fucking falls apart because it needs to go away, and then replace it with something that is actually, I don't know, conservative in its values, because right now the GOP are warmongering neocon classical fucking liberals. And so, yeah, James is actually right about this. And I just want, like, we should acknowledge it. You got to call a spade a spade. James is correct that the goal is to fracture the Republican Party by making sure they get as few votes possible in the midterms, making sure they lose the fucking midterms in resounding, embarrassing fashion to hopefully get the Republican Party to burn down and go away so that it can be rebuilt as an actual conservative party that is actually America first prior to the 2028 election, so that we don't get another fucking Zionist president who's going to take us to war in Iran on behalf of fucking Israel. I mean, James, unironically, is correct. And yeah, let's just be honest about this. We are at war. We are at war with classical, liberal, Zionists like him, who, by the way, everyone knows that this is like James's source of income right now. James lost all his income when he pissed off all of his religious clients. We know that because his stepdaughter told us that. James lost all his income from his conservative Christian clients who used to hire him all the time after he went after Christianity over and over and over and over and over again. Bro had to make up income somewhere, and he became a Zionist grifter. And now if you don't think he's being paid by the tweet, I don't know, man, you might not be high IQ enough to be in this community, but I'm just saying, like, you got, again, he is absolutely correct. We are at war with people like him. We are at war with people who are taking money to prop up a foreign power. We are at war with people who want to use our children to go to war with a foreign country on behalf of another foreign country that we have nothing to fucking do with. We are at war with these people. These people need to be destroyed and to go away. And then once they are destroyed, which is inevitable, everyone understands this, right? Again, they're fighting back so hard because they know they are losing. They know they are losing. They might not lose today. They may not lose tomorrow. But in the long term, their stock is only going down and our stock is only going up. And I have full faith that Nick Fuentes is going to continue to grow his movement. I have full faith that he's going to continue to appeal to a lot more than young men, by the way, because he is the only person that fucking makes sense in this time. And so this is the last grasp of a dying fucking beast complaining, oh, they're trying to destroy me. They're trying to destroy me. Yeah, get the fuck out of politics, asshole. You're a liberal that forced your wife to be in an open marriage she didn't want to be in so you could go around to all your Moms for Liberty events and fuck your fucking MILF groupies.
And I think that's the play. That's, I think, why they're so, I mean, besides Russian interests in Iran, why they're so interested in counter-signaling President Trump and claiming that this military operation has failed, is to break Republicans so they can reform it around themselves a few years down the road.
And they are, they've been making a lot of headway. Have we recognized enough to maybe stop it? I mean, because now it's about
nothing you can do. Nothing you can do, bitch. Nothing you can do.
The immune system, the conservative immune system on our body politic has woke up. We've realized this, like you said in your kind of opening about Dugan. Yeah, he looks like a something that came out of your shower drain or something like that. Dugan cannot survive contact with the public. This is the kind of a character that only, like Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum, only worked in the shadows. The second Klaus Schwab comes out looking like a Bond villain wearing a spacesuit, becomes a popular figure, his whole shtick started to fall apart. And within a year or two, he's retiring. He's not an influential character the way that he was on the world stage. And he becomes a symbol of evil. Dugan is the same kind of character.
All right, I don't care. I don't care about the Dugan shit. I don't care about the Dugan shit. I just wanted to explain clearly, and another great freeze from James there, that yes, All of these people need to be destroyed. And by these people, I mean Zionists who put Israel ahead of America, who go after people on the right before they go after people on the left every single day, who lie to the public, who clout chase for money and fame without actually engaging in any sort of intellectually honest debate at all, who lie and smear fucking constantly. These people need to be destroyed. They need to be embarrassed. They need to go the fuck away. So that's where I stand with that. W's to deeds for the channel membership. Really appreciate that. We are now up to, I can't even believe there's this. We haven't even really started the stream. 77 of our 100 goal already for channel memberships for the day. You guys spoil me. I really do appreciate it. Today, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be watching this presentation, which literally just took place a couple hours ago. It was at 2 p.m. today. I was out running an errand. I couldn't do it live. And so we're going to go back and watch this presentation that took place earlier today with Brian Bean and a black lady whose name I am not going to try to pronounce at all, about revolutionary abolitionism against cops and capitalism. This was streamed live to the Haymarket Books YouTube channel. The reason we are watching is because every single presentation that I see Brian Bean in, he always says the quiet part out loud over and over and over and over and over again. Like, we will probably see Brian Bean called to overthrow the United States government in this presentation. He does it almost every single fucking time I see him in a presentation. We have watched many with him before. And so that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, guys, did anyone see that Jake Lang did a little stunt today in front of basically disrupting Zoran Mandami's press conference? I got wind of this. Can we watch this real quick? This is live footage. This is about 10 minutes long. This is footage that came out today of Jake Lang doing yet another stunt in New York. And that's always good entertainment. So we're gonna watch this and then we're gonna get down to business. False nuts! Bro, massive W, Fosnots, 20 gifted channel memberships. Bro, what a fucking king. What a fucking legend. Really appreciate that, Fosnots. Thanks so much for supporting the community. Congrats and welcome to all the new channel members, getting us within 3 of our goal of 100 channel memberships, which is like generally the goal per stream now. Wow, bro, thank you. I haven't even started the stream yet. That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's see what happened with Jake Lang earlier outside of the mayor's mansion in New York City.
New Yorkers, this was a 9/11 style terrorist attack. No word in his statement mentioned Islam, terrorism, or the perpetrators' names. But instead, he had to go on a rant, some type of therapy session about a white man named Jake Lang. How about the radical Islamic terrorist?
W's Wolf. Wolf gets a Wolf, the hero we need. Wolf getting us over that membership goal for today. Thank you, Wolf. I appreciate it. We have hit the channel membership goal. Now, guys, I want to remind you, you're still allowed to give me money in channel memberships. You're still allowed to do that. But I don't get to ask you for the whole rest of the stream. If you want to donate more, like you totally can. Cynthia. Cynthia. Massive W, my darling. Thank you so much. You rock. What an amazing supporter. What a fucking queen. A legend. Cynthia is building a legacy. We appreciate you, Cynthia. Thanks so much. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Let me get that goal updated. There we go. Let's go back to Jake Lang.
He tried to murder multiple New Yorkers. Shame on Zoran Mandami. And we will be here and stand against him. And by God's grace, Jesus Christ will return on the throne of New York City, and we will see a revival of the Holy Spirit in the country, in the city, which makes the greatest country in the world. America. We support our country. We support the NYPD. And Mandami is going to destroy the city. 2 months in, terror attacks, bombs being found outside in the street inside of cars. Who's next? A Jewish synagogue needs to be blown up. How many Jewish synagogues need to be blown up until we realize Muslims cannot be trusted with power?
Oh, whoa. Jewish coast. Virgo Moon, I apologize. I didn't see that. Virgo Moon, I'm so sorry. I missed your W's. W's Virgo Moon. We really appreciate you. Thank you for the channel membership. Thanks for letting me know I missed it. I apologize. There you go. There you go. Cool. Restaurant.
No one reached out to me. They don't care if I get blown to the smithereens. The NYPD at every single event needs to be sweeping for bombs. They need to be looking inside the crowd at the radicals. These men were seen lighting wicks. The NYPD was looking at them. There should have been shots fired. Blow the terrorists out of the water.
Oh, he wanted them to kill
He
them.
is complicit.
Ooh.
We need a total remigration. Every Muslim out of New York. Stop the public Muslim prayer calls. They are radical jihadist prayer calls to murder innocent New Yorkers. This is what you get when you have a Muslim mayor. Within the first 2 months, a bomb is thrown outside his home trying to kill white American Christians, exercising our First Amendment right. About a vehicle can pass me easily now. Zoran Madami, you're a terrorist sympathizer. You murder New Yorkers with your rhetoric. No, I will not. I will not. Do not touch me. My name is Robert Close, reasonable suspicion of a crime. Do not touch me. Do not touch me. Zoran Madami is complicit for the near assassination attempt and murder of dozens of New Yorkers. This man refused to name the name of radical Islamic terrorists that tried to kill NYPD officers and peaceful Christian protesters. This man ought to be ashamed of himself. We need a recall on Zoran Madami. Zoran Madami would have allowed all of these beautiful NYPD officers to be blown to smithereens. And what does he do? He says white supremacy is the issue. No, radical Islamic terrorists that have invaded our country through open borders, through the Democrat regime, is the reason why it's the reason why the average American is afraid to voice their opinion, because you will be attacked. I was attacked in Minneapolis. I was nearly killed here in New York. It's all the same perpetrators. Radical, violent leftists and their cohorts of illegal immigrants are trying to kill native New Yorkers, Native Americans. I was born in Middletown, New York. I wrestled at Hunter College. I've given my life to this city, not to have radical Islamic terrorists try to kill dozens of NYPD and dozens of Christians without the mayor even saying his name. He blames it on white supremacy in Florida, where I'm running for United States Senate. Because in New York, you'll get bombed for speaking the opinion that I have. I can go safely on the streets.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I didn't know that Jake Lang was running for Senate in Florida. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
To Florida and voice my opinion without radical Islamic terrorists killing me. That's why I'm a Florida resident. And that's why New York State had more people leave it last year than any other state and ran to Florida, where freedom of speech is protected, where the police are lifted up instead of vilified, and they won't even name the perpetrator of a mass terrorist attack on the NYPD.
Officers who stopped the attack. What do you have to say to that?
God bless them, but did he name the name of the person who tried to kill them? What about? Okay, so yesterday in his tweet, did he name them, or he failed to name them but called me a white supremacist? 18 million impressions on it. I am a pro-white American. America was founded by white people, and they need an advocate. We are disappearing. We are being displaced. We are being replaced. I have hate in my heart for no one, but I have love in my heart for the home team. I was born a white American New Yorker, and I stand for white American New Yorkers. They deserve a home in this city. They deserve to be able to speak their mind on the streets without having bombs thrown at them. I stand for Christians. An America saying that Jesus Christ is Lord is apt to get you killed by a Muslim. And the mayor, instead of addressing the issue, will obfuscate the truth, completely disavow. He will not even say the name of the radical Islamic terrorist, but he says white supremacists showed up for bigotry and we deserve to be murdered.
Whoa, we got some Secret Service.
Zoran, the crowd, the Muslim terrorists in this one. I pray the name of Jesus Christ's blood over you in this city. New York in America was founded as a Christian country in a Christian city in a Christian state. And we will remain.
Right there, man.
Zora, say their name.
These are running away.
White Americans built.
I just accidentally bought Kate Spade Sunnies. I should have been here in class. Yeah, that happens. I accidentally bought Christian Dior lip gloss last night.
New York, Zoran, and you're destroying it. The Italians, the Jews built New York.
Why did you come to New York?
Why did I come to New York? To wrestle? I was born in New York. I was born in Middletown, New York. I wrestled at Hunter College. This is my city. I love this city. I've given more sweat equity. I've lived in this city. My grandfather grew up 88 years ago in Far Rockaway, New York. I am a New Yorker. I am a New Yorker, born and raised. My grandparents are from New York. My father and mother cowards that will allow radical jihadist Islamic terrorism to take over this city. This is a shame.
Zoran right now.
Oh, and first of all, let me address the media.
Move out of the driveway.
What coward,
out of the driveway.
shameful
Get
people.
to the side.
I had people say smoke bombs. I had people say devices were found outside the mayor's home. No, you inbred fucking liberal retards. There was a bomb thrown at white Christians by a Muslim.
You inbred liberal retards. Jake Leg, W. That was fucking funny.
The driveway.
Shameful
Get
people.
to the side.
I had people say smoke bombs. I had people say devices were found outside the mayor's home. No, you inbred fucking liberal retards. There was a bomb thrown at white Christians by a Muslim man right here outside the mayor's home within the first 2 months of there being a Muslim mayor. There was not a right-wing, far-right agitator that threw a bomb. You lying sacks of shit. The lawsuits are coming. My brother, we are going to file every single leftist fake news media outlet, every single leftist fake news media outlet that said that yesterday's actions were caused by my group, that we perpetrated any violence. You're going to be sued to oblivion. I swear. I'm gonna have your socks on later.
Tell the truth.
I'm taking everything. I'm taking everything. The lawsuit's for defamation. There's been multiple outlets, including NBC. NBC said that my group was the one that threw the bombs. That my group was the one that Maybe I'll come back and run for New York City mayor.
Yes. Oh, he's running for mayor now. He's running for mayor.
My city, not the fucking Muslim invaders.
Good job.
God bless America.
You didn't clap? You're not going to clap?
Gee, sorry, you guys got a fucking scum-sucking Muslim as your mayor who doesn't care about you.
He freaking stole it.
God bless, guys. We'll be back. New York, we'll be back.
Good morning. On Saturday, a protest was held outside Gracie Mansion, where I live with my wife, Rama. Neither of us were home at the time. This was a vile protest rooted in white supremacy entitled Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City. I'm the first Muslim mayor of our city. Anti-Muslim bigotry is nothing new to me, nor is it anything new for the 1 million or so Muslim New Yorkers who know this city as our home. While I found this protest appalling, I will not waver in my belief that it should be allowed to happen. Ours is a free society where the right to peaceful protest is sacred. It does not belong only to those we agree with. It belongs to everyone. I will defend that right every day that I am mayor, even when those protesting say things that I abhor. Let me also be clear about something else. New York City will never tolerate violence, whether from protests or counter-protests. Many of the counter-protesters met this display of bigotry peacefully, with a vision of a city that is welcoming to all. But a few did not.
Yeah, okay.
2 men, Amir Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi, traveled from Pennsylvania and attempted to bring violence to New York City. They are suspected of coming here to commit an act of terrorism. There is video of these 2 individuals throwing 2 devices towards the protest. The police department has determined that these were improvised explosive devices made to injure, maim, or worse. Thanks to the swift and decisive actions of NYPD officers at the scene, both men were immediately taken into custody, and the devices they brought taken off of our streets. I want to commend the officers who were on site. They faced a chaotic situation that very quickly could have become far.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. It is actually fucking wild that this is like when was anyone here when we went on the day that Trump got shot? And like we literally, like, I was live already for Socialism Saturday, and then within like minutes of Socialism Saturday starting, Trump got shot on live TV, and we just started watching the coverage, and it was fucking insane. It's kind of like we literally could have had we were watching that protest live. We literally could have seen a nail bomb gone off at that protest and had a whole like Boston Marathon like part 2 thing. I bet, listen, man, and for people to know, I was at the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013. Like I was fucking there. I was like 2 blocks away or a block and a half away from the second bomb when it went off. Like I've seen the level of carnage that those types of fucking things can do, and it's an extremely traumatizing experience. I don't really like to talk about it, but that was real. And it's like we literally could have watched that live on the internet. It is, you know, I mean, consider it an act of God, consider it an intervention. I'm not saying that I like Jake Lang as the best person in the world. I kind of think he's a retard, but he's an entertaining retard, so I'll watch him nonetheless. But I don't want him to get fucked up by a nail bomb. I don't want that sort of shit to happen. So it is actually kind of wild that that we could have seen that live on Saturday, and I'm really glad we didn't, and I'm really glad no one was hurt and all that good stuff. All right, guys, we are going to be getting into the main event very soon, but just for funsies, I forgot to do this earlier. Just for funsies, you guys want a Whatnot update? Do you guys want a Whatnot update? Obviously, I'm wearing awesome Whatnot sunglasses. Now, Whatnot, this has actually been a very productive week on Whatnot for me. I've won like 4 free fragrances, like full-size fragrances. They send me this shit all the time. I literally have 9 different fragrances sitting on my desk just because I keep winning this shit on Whatnot in the giveaways. I win at least 1 or 2 fragrances a week. I am good with fragrance for the rest of my life. Last week, I also won this Burberry scarf, which is actually a pretty rad scarf. It's cashmere. It's like the real thing. They even sent me a certificate of authenticity with it, and that's pretty fucking great. Now, today, I just got another one of my winnings, which is a Celine leather pouch. And I've never had anything from Celine before. It's not a brand I'm really familiar with, but this is a fucking nice pouch. I won this on Whatnot for free just by getting in the givvies. That's pretty fucking rad. Also, I won a laptop. I won a fucking laptop. Like, I don't have it yet. They're sending it to me. I'm going to give it to Victor as a present, but I literally won a fucking laptop on Whatnot. I won a Burberry scarf, this Celine pouch, and a laptop, and like 18 different fucking fragrances all in 1 week, and that's all for free. Whatnot is the greatest app on the internet. But the piece de resistance, I didn't win this. I bought this. I have been chasing the Balenciaga mini backpack around Whatnot for weeks. For weeks, I have wanted this backpack. The reason I wanted it is it's not a traditional backpack. It's more like on a sling. So you like wear it around like a sling like this. So it's more like a bag you can wear like this. You can wear it on your back, like whatever. But the cool thing about this backpack is not only that it looks fucking cool, you can take the sling off of it and you can actually clip it to another bag as a bag charm. You can clip it on a belt loop, or you can just clip the Balenciaga backpack onto a larger bag as like a bag charm or a little thing on the outside. As soon as I realized that, I was like, you're fucking telling me it's a cool ass sling. It looks fucking awesome. Balenciaga leather is cool. And I can make it into a bag charm. I'm a big fan of little tiny bags that I can use with other bags just because I think it's funny. I have a little mini Gucci Sylvie that I can do the same thing with. I can literally clip my mini Gucci Sylvie onto a larger Gucci and literally be carrying. It's like, this is, if you guys don't understand, this is like the best way to like mog other women at the mall. It's like no one has bags like this. No one has luxury bag charms on top of the luxury bags. It's just like, it's so fucking funny. Anyway, that is the win of the week, is the Balenciaga backpack. And conservatives are going to tell me that I'm like a satanic worshiper, cult worshiper, because I have a fucking bag. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to be real honest, conservatives. I don't give a fuck if you think Balenciaga is satanic. I don't fucking care. It's a cool ass backpack. When conservatives start making brands that look cool and are cool and function in a cool way, then they can fucking talk about it. But I don't care. I don't care. So whatnot W. Whatnot W. Yup. Mog maxing. Yes, 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 yes. Anyway. Let's get into our main event, guys. Please mount the like button if you would be so kind. We are now getting down to work. We are now getting down to business. No more fucking around. No more tomfoolery. This is a presentation that happened 3 or 4 hours ago. So this presentation is within the last 6 hours. We are watching it basically almost in real time, not quite in real time, but just a couple hours after. This is a presentation with Brian Bean, who almost always calls to overthrow the government in every single presentation we see him in. This is a presentation about revolutionary abolitionism against cops and capitalism. They're going to be talking about defunding the police, but you also have to keep in mind that when the left says defund the police, they also mean abolish ICE. They also mean abolish DHS. They also mean abolish borders. They also mean abolish the United States government, okay? All of these things are interconnected because the police are representations of capitalism. Capitalism being private property ownership, the things that create all hierarchies and thus creates all oppression. The police are the managers or enforcers of private property. ICE are the managers of enforcers of private property because they enforce the border. ACAB, that's where this idea comes from. Police abolitionism, the abolition of the prison industrial complex, is one of the major issues on the far left that you need to understand in order to understand them. Brian Bean is a revolutionary communist. That means he does not participate in elections. He does not believe elections are going to help him. He believes in the violent overthrow of the United States government. All right? So, let's get this party started. If you guys have questions as we make our way through, please do let me know. And just as a reminder to people, if you are new to my work, head over to my Substack. That is Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. And you can find this section, New to My Work, start here. The very best thing to do if you haven't done it yet is to watch the re-education class, an anti-communist introduction to the far left. This is a class with like 13 or 14 clips from far left trainings that I've recorded over the years, put together in one so that you can really get a crash course deep dive into the language of the left and to start to learn what these things sound like in the real world. If you haven't yet taken the time to do that, I strongly recommend you do. There's other content you can find on there as well. All of this is totally for free. Once you watch it, share it with your friends and family, get the information out there. And again, all of this is available on karlyn.substack.com. You can also become a paid member over there for $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% funded by you guys. I have no political masters. I take no political money. Thank you so much, Wolf, for the super chat. Police on the beat is capitalism in the streets. Exactly. Yes, exactly. So if you guys want to support my work, in addition to sending in super chats and channel memberships, another way you can do so is by signing up for the Substack, karlyn.substack.com. Also, if you guys are interested in learning how to infiltrate the left, I will be holding a live presentation on Sunday, March 22nd, which is a week before the No Kings protest. We are going to get a little group of people in the community together to all go to the No Kings protest in our area to do intelligence gathering. And I'm going to give you a download of the tips and tricks you need to know to go undercover with the left. Now, listen, the No Kings protest is a progressive protest. You are not going to be in physical danger going to the No Kings protest. That's why it's a great opportunity to practice. It's an opportunity to kind of get used to being in leftist environments, get used to talking to people in leftist environments, and it's an excellent opportunity to look for far left groups that are going to be piggybacking onto the No Kings protest and see what propaganda they're handing out. Hang on. See what propaganda they're handing out, see what meetings they're having, see what groups are represented in your area, because even though the No Kings protest is a progressive protest, far left groups do piggyback onto it to try to recruit and radicalize more people to the far left. So you can go look for stickers, look for zines, look for flyers, try to talk to different people, ask them what they're about, all that stuff. I will tell you guys exactly how to do this in a way that you're going to blend in. You're not going to ask questions that reveal yourself as a conservative or a spy or a plant or anything like that. You're going to know the right things to say, how to say them, how to exist in these environments, and it's going to give everyone a little bit of practice. We're practicing in a very low risk environment, okay? I don't want to send you guys right into a revolutionary socialist meeting. That's only for psychotic people like me. The very first thing I went undercover at the left at was a socialist reproductive justice conference. It was a rather traumatizing experience. I'm not sending you guys right into the farthest to the far left. If you're just getting started doing this and you want to help out, one of the very best ways you can do is to do long-term monitoring of the leftist groups in your areas and report back to us. In order to do that, you need to interact with these people in person, okay? The No Kings protest represents a very kind of like low bar, a very safe environment where you're probably not, unless something really crazy happens, like, and that quite frankly could happen anywhere at any time. Like, it's a good way to kind of like dip your toe in the water just to get used to it and to get some experience looking for different stickering, looking for different graffiti, looking for pamphlets, flyers, zines, seeing the different groups, learning how to identify the different groups that are there, stuff like that. So the live show is on March 22nd. The next No Kings protest is on March 28th. And we're going to build a little national intelligence community of people who are all going to this stuff in their area and then reporting back to the larger group. And we're going to have information no one else has. How fucking cool is that? Again, you can find that information on my Substack, Karlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. And if you want to get involved and help, everything is totally free, obviously, because you guys support my work voluntarily, and I really do appreciate that. All right, let's dig in, guys. Let's dig in. Let's fast forward to the beginning of the presentation. Bing.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
good evening, afternoon, or morning, depending on where you are tuning in from. Thank you all for joining us and for bearing with us through the slight confusion on our start time. My name is Miles, and I'm a part of the Haymarket Books team here in London. For anyone watching who's unfamiliar with Haymarket, we are an independent, non-profit publisher of radical books based in Chicago, publishing work from movement voices, thinkers, artists, and organizers on Palestine, abolition, the border, Black history, feminism, poetry, and much, much more. Holding spaces like this today is such a special part of the work that we do as a part of our commitment to political education and building community and strategy for our times. Over recent months and years, we have witnessed an accelerating expansion of police powers around the world, from increasing clampdowns on political protest and suppression of international solidarity movements, standing with liberation struggles from Palestine to Kurdistan and beyond, the widening use of counter-terror powers to persecute and silence particularly Muslim and Arab voices, the fascistic practices of immigration enforcement disappearing our friends and neighbors and executing folks.
Wait, you guys hear that? The fascistic practices of immigration enforcement. They believe that enforcing borders, enforcing immigration laws is literally fascist. Listen again.
From Palestine to Kurdistan and beyond, the widening use of counter-terror powers to persecute and silence particularly Muslim and Arab voices, the fascistic practices of immigration enforcement disappearing our friends and neighbors and executing folks who stand in their way.
Okay, we may need to turn the closed captions off. Okay, let's just, again.
Kurdistan and beyond, the widening use of counter-terror powers to persecute and silence particularly Muslim and Arab voices, the fascistic practices of immigration enforcement disappearing our friends and neighbors and executing folks who stand in their way, or the daily criminalization and harassment of Black, brown, and working class life. The role of the police in protecting structures of class, race, gender, heteronormativity, empire, and ultimately capital has never been more apparent. Our movements must be clear-eyed in recognizing this role, and we have to organize accordingly, namely through a revolutionary abolitionism. Discussing some of these themes, we're really delighted to be joined by two brilliant speakers, writers, and organizers, Brian Bean and Shanice McBean. Brian is a Chicago-based socialist organizer, writer, and agitator originally from North Carolina. They're one of the founding editors of Rampant magazine, and their work has been published in Truth Out, Jacobin, Tempest, Spectre, Red Flag, New Politics, Socialist Worker, International Viewpoint, and more. They worked on 2 books with Haymarket, the book Palestine, A Socialist Introduction, for which they were a co-editor and contributor, and most recently, Their End is Our Beginning, Cops, Capitalism, and Abolition, which came out last year and which we'll be focusing on today. Shanice McBean is an activist, writer, feminist, and Afro-Marxist. She is co-author of Abolition Revolution, the 2023 winner of the Bread and Roses Award from Pluto Press, which I strongly recommend. Fantastic book, as well as Their End is Our Beginning. And Shanice is a co-host of the new podcast, Life of the Party, which I also strongly recommend. Shanice and Brian's works both present meaningful invitations into this work of resistance, reflecting the different contexts on different sides of the Atlantic and beyond, and each speaking to global traditions and legacies of anti-capitalist struggle and the fight for liberation. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. I'm very much looking forward to this discussion, and I will hand over to you, Shanice.
Thank you so much, Miles, and thank you for setting that scene, and thank you for having us. My partner described it, and my friends have described it as the double bean extravaganza. So it's great to be here today, and it's great to be in conversation with you, Brian. So I think Miles did a great job of kind of setting the scene a little bit, telling us a bit about the political context that we are operating in as abolitionists right now. And I just want to do a little bit more of that scene setting. I think also relevant is the fact that we are 5 years after the second major wave of the Black Lives Matter movement. And as Miles alluded to, we're in the midst of a genocide. And I think also relevant to this context is certainly in Britain and in the US, cost of living crises and economic crises that have spiraled one after the other since the 2008 financial crash, promises of, coming out of crises only to then find ourselves in a new one. And also think relevant, particularly in the US context, is the decline of US hegemony and the US empire, and also the reconfiguration of global hegemony. And so I think this context is coming, these multiplying and overlapping crises, I think, are coming together to create a situation where Western states across the world, but, in our context, Western states are really ramping up their carceral technologies. We look at ICE in the US and we're horrified by the murders that are taking place there. But we can also look to the British context, the authoritarianism that is kind of underpinning the state's response to the Palestine solidarity movement. So this is our context. Brian, I wanted to ask you, given this, what was the motivation behind you writing this book at this time? And for you, how salient in terms of your motivations was the political moment that we're in?
Yeah. First, Shanice, thanks for being a part of this conversation. I'm really looking forward to it, and big ups to Haymarket for hosting it. Yeah, the motivation for the book came directly from my context first as being like an organizer. And so being in the abolitionist movement, there has always been a implicit and sometimes explicit anti-capitalism. This is not just the current iteration of it.
The abolitionist movement, the movement to abolish the cops, abolish the police, abolish the prison industrial complex, is either implicitly or explicitly anti-capitalism. This is why we love Brian Bean. Brian Bean also always says the quiet part out loud.
Came directly from my context first as being like an organizer. And so being in the abolitionist movement, there has always been a implicit and sometimes explicit anti-capitalism. This is not just the current iteration of it, but on back to the first wave, the struggle against chattel slavery. You saw that there was still a very strong
The first wave of the abolitionist movement was the struggle against chattel slavery. That is why the left believes the police are descendants from slave catchers, because the slave catchers back in the day were enforcing capitalism, private property ownership in the form of chattel slavery. That is why they believe the police are a racist, white supremacist institution. Does everyone understand this? Every time they call the police racist, every time they call the police white supremacist, this is the core of what they believe, is that it descended from slavery. The police are the modern day slave catchers. The police are the modern day enforcers of private property ownership. They enforce property over people. Their job is to protect the bourgeois class, the oppressor class. That is what they believe. Again, we're going to get a lot of goodies today.
This is not just the current iteration of it, but going back to the first wave, the struggle against chattel slavery. You saw that there was still a very strong radical wing that had explicitly anti-capitalist aims. And our opponents knew that as well. There's a quote from Jefferson Davis, who of course was the president of the Slave Republic Confederacy, who said, in fact,
This is correct, and I want to make sure people understand this, especially for people who might be new. And if you're confused by this, please let us know. I know that people can be intimidated by me, but like if you have a question, please let me know. But I want to be very clear about this. Dietz is correct when he says Black police are white supremacists under this ideology, because it has nothing to do with skin color. It has to do with, are you upholding the capitalist system? By virtue of being police, black police officers are considered to be engaging in white supremacy because they are enforcing private property ownership rights.
European socialists who, in wild radicalism, are the correspondents of the American abolitionists. So there's been, throughout the history of the different waves of the abolitionist movements, strong anti-capitalist current. For me, I wanted to try to contribute to talking about how to, I think you do this in your work as well too, make the kind of implicit connection between the struggle against abolition and state violence more explicit. To see the project of abolition, of ending the police, of breaking down the prison walls as being one that's connected with a revolution for.
Oh, technical difficulties. Technical difficulties.
Those are a very exclamation point there. And so that was kind of why I started the book. And I think that the political context has made that basic point even more important, in which that connection between the state and state violence and carceral institutions is becoming even more profound because of the crises of capitalism that you mentioned that are continuing. And so the basic argument of like, if we want to fight to make our world better in any way, we're going to run up against the police in the streets when we protest, in every venue in which we try to make our voices heard and to transform the system, we're going to encounter the police. And so the question about what we do about that is even more important as the police state in general is intensified. I wrote the book before Trump 2.0. And now we see the intensification of the police state with ICE swarming our cities, kidnapping our neighbors. We see that with the crackdown.
See, what did I tell you? It's not just about the police as in the cops in your neighborhood. You can see what he just said. You can see the intensification of the police state through ICE in neighborhoods. When they say the police, they mean ICE, they mean DHS, they mean the military, they mean really anything that upholds the current United States government by enforcing borders or enforcing property rights or things like that. Listen again.
In general is intensified. I wrote the book before Trump 2.0. And now we see the intensification of the police state with ICE swarming our cities, kidnapping our neighbors. We see that with the crackdown and protests on Palestine Action in the UK. And it's a global phenomenon. Even Sweden, which some socialists hold up as a model for how we want to organize our society, has increased their police funding 80% since 2017 and expanding their officers. So there's an intensification of police in every capitalist state that makes the question about abolition, the state.
When he says the capitalist state, he means the United States government, or every state that is built on capitalism. Every state with borders is a capitalist state, guys. You understand that? If you enforce borders, you are a capitalist state. The United States government, they believe, is a capitalist state. The Constitution is a capitalist document. The government is a capitalist government.
And anti-capitalism, I think, even more important for us to be sharp on. And I was trying to contribute to those politics.
Yeah, no, I really love that answer. I think one of the things that's jumping out to me is this question of continuity in three senses. The first is that basic argument that you mentioned, that actually the question of abolition isn't new at all. There's this myth that, oh, you know, people started talking about defund the police in 2020. It's this wild new radical idea. And actually questions of policing and resistance to policing in all of its historical iterations has always been a central part of the history of the working class. So that's the first sense in which continuity comes to mind. Another sense in which continuity comes to mind is just the word abolition. So you mentioned how abolition goes back to the question of the abolition of slavery, as well as now how we use it in terms of the abolition of carceral systems. So I want to pick your brains about that. I want to go back a little bit historically to kind of frame our conversation. And I think, you know, the origins of policing, it's not an under-theorized topic. It's one that, you know, there are a lot of books about the origins.
So real, so true. Karlyn has the best thing going on the internet, flat out. So fucking true. I have worked and suffered for years to build this thing. So real. Thank you.
Of policing. But one of the things that I loved about your book and your story was you pushed back against the idea that there is a single story of the origins of policing, and you're very, very keen to make the case that actually there were uneven experimentations in lots of different places over many different decades and many different contexts, and those experiments eventually coalesced into the modern police force. So can you tell us a bit in fact, can you just tell us what that story is? How did we get from slave catchers and colonialism and a response to the industrial working class? How did we get from all of those experiments to the modern police force?
Tell us.
First, I mean, just talking about abolition and the continuity that you mentioned makes me think about something that you wrote in your book too, where you say that abolition is a tool to reimagine revolutionary politics. I think that reimagining is something that has been ongoing in a process that we're trying to do now. So I just thought about that when you were asking the question. But as to the origins of the police, I mean, I think part of what I outline in the book in chapter 1 is trying to tell a story about what is the function of policing. And a lot of people say, oh, it's to protect private property. And one can imagine a
little on the nose, isn't it? It's almost like I've listened to Brian Bean before. The function of policing, a lot of people would say, is to protect private property. The left's definition of capitalism is private property ownership. The police exist to protect private property. Therefore, ergo, the reason the left wants to abolish the police is the police are the protectors of capitalism or the protectors of private property every single time.
I outline in the book in chapter 1 is trying to tell a story about what is the function of policing. And a lot of people say, oh, it's to protect private property. And one can imagine a lot of different ways that private property could be protected. You could have the military.
You guys remember, for the people who are new, you might not fully understand the struggle that this community had with getting conservatives to acknowledge that the left talks about capitalism all the time. Do you guys did the veterans in the community remember a time where we literally did entire PR campaigns around getting conservatives to understand that the left was always talking about capitalism? And conservatives would say things like, Karlyn, I don't know what you're talking about. The left never talks about capitalism. And we yelled and we screamed and we looked for clips everywhere and we shared those clips everywhere. And then, like, eventually we found the most perfect presentation where they explicitly said over and over and over again, capitalism is private property ownership. This is what we mean by it. Blah, 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 blah. We went after James Lindsay for a full year, demanding that he actually use the word capitalism because he didn't want to use it. This was our struggle. It was like, yeah, and literally the struggle still rages on today. But it's just like, do you want to know why the right constantly loses to the left? Because they refuse to hinge into reality with what the left is doing. They refuse to hinge into reality. And it's just like, man, you guys don't even know basic 101 level information. Anyway.
You could have direct mercenaries hired by the owning class. You could have the owning class being armed themselves. And all these different forms of ways to protect private property actually have been tried at different iterations. So how is it that now the police, with different local iterations, still look pretty common, are the chosen preferred method of repression in every capitalist state? And I think answering that question goes back to seeing the police as a solution.
This is a great question. Do I think conservative influencers are actually conservative or mostly just a psyop? I think it's a little bit of both, if I'm being honest about it. I think it's a little bit of both. I think many conservative influencers are, in fact, as stupid as you think they are. I think many conservative influencers are paid to say every single thing that they say, which is why they will never deviate from the narrative. And literally, some are both. Some are both. They are both stupid and paid to say the things they say.
For the ruling class, for certain problems that capitalism creates for them. And those problems are that in order for capitalism to make its profit, which is its main driver, it has to essentially organize all the people who do not own us in some capacity. Factories sort of early on, of course, to put people together in urban environments in order to collaborate and cooperate for the production of profit for the owners. And that, the thing that's required to create profit for them is also it allows us to resist. So it also puts us together in urban environments, in factories and workplaces to collaborate and work on our own capacity to struggle against these conditions, right? And so that puts the question of the crowd as the challenge that the ruling class had to figure out how to develop. And the police in its modern form came about through a whole series of ruling class experiments, trying different ways to hold down the crowd, be it displaced agricultural workers being driven to the cities in the UK, be it enslaved African Americans who were kidnapped from their home in the American South, different groupings of people that were a part of this early capitalism that needed to be ordered and organized. And so, it went from the slave catchers in the U.S. South, the slave patrols. It went to various iterations of night watchmen and court officials in the UK. And
he's talking about the evolution of the modern day police. No, this is not the Revolutionary Communists of America. Brian Bean is affiliated with several far left groups. He's affiliated with the Tempest Collective, with Rampart Magazine. He's done stuff with the Firebrand Collective. He's like this. He is his own person, but he has loose affiliations with many revolutionary groups. But he's talking about the origins of modern day policing being like slave catchers and then all that stuff.
People that were a part of this early capitalism that needed to be ordered and organized. And so, it went from the slave catchers in the U.S. South, the slave patrols, and went to various iterations of night watchmen and court officials in the UK and London and Paris, and all these different collaborations they talked, like they traded notes. They said what worked in France and how do we balance having.
Yeah, that's definitely really more of a Michael Moore thing over on Rumble, Irish Lass. I wouldn't say that's something I've heard them say before. Thank you for the question, though.
Having a body that looks more military, like they did in France, was something that is able to appear domestic. And to answer that question, they looked at the colonial occupation of Ireland and the Royal Irish Constabulary, where they're like, okay, well, open occupation doesn't look good. And oftentimes arises the ire and resistance of the people that's present. So maybe we can make a different body that appears as a public body and these sorts of things. And so through that process of experimentation, we get at kind of the modern police, which his main role is to patrol, to express the power of the capitalist state up and down every street, and to be on hand for crowd control. And the police work better than other forms like the military because militaries are good at being able to put down traditional conflict, peasant wars and the such.
Hang on, we got a super chat. Chitalago, when you can't own private property, you become private property. Well, I mean, like, I think, actually, I'm just going to agree with that. Yeah, I think it's a really good observation. That's a very 1984 level observation. I appreciate that, bro. Thank you.
Not quite as well as being able to handle multiple urban explosions happening at the same time everywhere, which is how the heights of our working class resistance has been expressed. Similarly, the look of military, like I mentioned before, is something that appears open occupation. And so if you can make it look like a public force, it's not the direct hired mercenaries of the capitalist class, which would be an obvious target, but people say, oh, it's public. It is the democratic control of the city, the municipality, the state, whatever it is. But that deflects some of the kind of ire and the rage. And then it is, of course, also cheaper. So the capitalist class themselves don't have to directly fund, but these bullies in blue are funded and paid for by our own working class tax dollars. And so all those sorts of things come together through the process of experimentation to arrive at this solution to the problem that capitalism poses to the capitalist class, which is they've gotten us all together and put us in these immiserated, exploitative, oppressive conditions, and also allows us to fight back. How are they going to manage that? And the police is their solution that they rely on more and more as the system of capitalism continues to be in further and deeper crisis.
Yeah, that history is so pertinent. And I think the example that we really look to in Britain is the Peterloo massacre, where it kind of occurred exactly as you described, whereby you've got this force, the cavalry in this
No. You're new here, obviously, and clearly you're new here. First of all, we don't talk in all caps on this channel. I need you to, the bot is the only person that's allowed to use all caps, and she has earned that through years of service. You are new here. I do not like all caps. We need you to temper that down a notch. Secondly, this is a conservative retard interpretation, and we are higher IQ than this. No, it's not. They just want to be the new bullies. No, bro. It's actually much worse than that. They want to abolish and overthrow the fucking government, okay? They want to destroy every single part of this society. So we do not do this conservative shit talking stuff here because you guys do not do nuanced analysis of this. You don't even understand the full extent of the problem. Your job right now is to sit back, shut the fuck up, listen, learn, and ask questions, and do so in normal letters. Thank you.
Distinct to the ordinary working class, now industrial working class population. They have a uniform, they have these fancy weaponry, and they're also drawn from the upper echelons of society. They weren't necessarily always from the working classes or from the traveling classes. And so in 1819, where you have the industrial working class on the move, on the march, they're striking, they're sabotaging factories, and the state brings in the cavalry and kills some of the protesters, as opposed to quelling that resistance. The opposite actually happens, and people get more ferocious. The demonstrations become bigger and larger. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's this central question of how you create a force that is able to administer coercion and control over the working class, but that also looks a bit like the working class.
Right.
I think one of the things that you also mentioned that's quite interesting is this question of ordering. And you talked about how police forces are very much about ordering and organizing the working class. And I think that brings to mind for me how that process is both physical and geographical. So we want to make sure that this crowd doesn't penetrate this factory, for example, or we want to stop these striking workers picketing from here and moving their picket over there. So there's a very physical aspect of it, but there's also an ideological aspect of policing. There was a study that was done, I think it was 2022, in London, that found that boroughs in London where there was high levels of income inequality, so where rich and poor people were in the same areas in high concentrations, that brought in more policing, in particular to police the working class aspects of those communities, to mark them out as a population that needs to be controlled, a population that needs to be policed, and a population that is somehow deviant. So my question to you is around this kind of question of ideology. Your book highlights how ideology is a central part of the functioning of the state, and carceral systems operate fundamentally on the question of consent. How do you get a population to, develop popular consent to this idea of policing? So from your perspective, what are the most effective tools that the state uses to generate that consent, and what are our best arguments against them?
That's a great question. I think that I think there's two answers to that. The first is a little bit glib, and the question of democracy. I think that we are often told over and over again that we live in a democracy, and I think that more and more the left should say, well, there's still some trappings of that, but in general, we don't live in a democracy. If you look at just everything from the amount of campaign funding to, particularly in the US, the two-party system, redistricting, the disenfranchisement of people, particularly brown and black people, there's so many barriers that get to the point in which it's kind of like why in 2020, at the height of our uprising, you saw the burning down of a Minneapolis police precinct was more popular than both presidential candidates of the two major parties. You see just people just being completely dissatisfied and disillusioned with the system that shows more and more that it does not work for us. So I think the first...
We have a conservative retard in the chat. Hey, Jamie, bro, do you know where you are right now? Do you have any idea where you are? People work hard, make something of their lives, and get cut down. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Bro, are you able to interact with this content? Because I'm going to be really honest, Jamie, we gatekeep this community. We kick out all low IQ retards that are not willing to come here and listen and learn. It kind of seems right now like you are unwilling to come here and listen and learn, and you're being a giant ass distraction in my chat. So are you willing to sit down, shut the fuck up and listen, or should I just deport your ass from the channel right now? I let the first comment slide too. I saw the first comment, and now the comments have just kept coming. So Jamie, I'm going to require an answer from you, and I'm going to require confirmation that you are willing to sit down, shut the fuck up, listen and learn. Otherwise, I'm deporting you from the channel. You have 30 seconds to answer me before I ban you. This is a yes or no question. This does not require a discussion. Yes or no? Are you willing to sit down, shut the fuck up, listen and learn, or are we banning you? You have 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and okay, so it looks like Jamie is not capable of sitting the fuck down, shutting the fuck up, listening and learning. Jamie, I'm very sorry. You're not even speaking proper English. You're obviously not on our level, bro. Deported from the channel. Get the fuck out.
Kind of element of how one kind of holds on some illusion of consent is through continuing to propagate the notion that we live in a democracy. And I think also why that's important is it points to also where
socialists believe that we do not currently live in a democracy. Which is true, but listen to the rest of it. They believe that we do not currently live in a democracy because socialists believe the only true form of democracy is socialism. So every single time you hear a leftist talking about democracy, 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 you need to code switch that in your head to understand they're not talking about what we have right now. They're talking about what happens after they overthrow the government and abolish the Constitution. Democracy means socialism.
Completely dissatisfied and disillusioned with a system that shows more and more that it does not work for us. And so I think the first kind of element of how one kind of holds on some illusion of consent is through continuing to propagate the notion that we live in a democracy. And I think also why that's important is it points to also where certain valves to release struggle are, right? So if we talk about this country being a democracy, then it was like, well, engage in the political process, and through our faith in that, then we're going to make our way to a better world. But that is not how it's talked about, particularly not in the Western world by people in the ivory towers of academia. You know, you talk about countries like Egypt and the other countries in the Middle East around the Arab Spring. It wasn't talked about that these were democracies, that then people should engage in the political process. It was talked about these are authoritarian states that people had to rise up and resist in mass ways. And I think that those kind of solutions are more what are required here when we begin to poke holes in and tear down the notion that as it currently exists, that we live in a democracy. So I think that's the first component. The second, I think,
Hang on, we got a question, and I want to answer questions even when they are maybe not as well worded as they could be. Is there an image of democratic socialism they see it isn't just one-to-one Soviet or Chinese or North Korean style communism, or is that exactly that boldface? Okay, so first of all, we are not watching a democratic socialist. Brian Bean is a revolutionary communist. You could also say revolutionary socialist. They're basically the same thing. The difference between the democratic socialists and the revolutionary socialists is that the democratic socialists still believe in elections. They still believe in making incremental change to achieve a post-capitalist world by running in elections, getting into office, making change in government, yada, 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 stuff like that. Zoran Mandami is a democratic socialist because Zoran Mandami ran in an election, got elected to office, and is trying to make incremental change over time in that office to bring about a post-capitalist world. Brian Bean is a revolutionary. He does not believe in elections. He does not believe. Okay, bro, you explain it to us then. You explain to us what Brian Bean's goals are. If I'm taking the time to answer a question and you don't, you already know that. Okay, you explain it then. What is the difference between reformism and revolutionism, and how can we tell that Brian Bean is a revolutionary communist and not a reformist? Because you literally just said he was a democratic socialist. In your own question, you said he was a democratic socialist. He's not a democratic socialist. So now you explain to us why. No, you aren't listening. You explain what you think you know. Go now. We're waiting. Entire stream stopped just for you. Either explain or admit you don't know. Those are your two options. Either explain or no. Your option is not to fucking backtalk me. Either explain the difference between... He is not a democratic socialist. Explain the difference between a democratic socialist and him. We're waiting. Either explain or say you don't know. If you don't do it, I'm going to permanently ban you from the channel. Those are your no. You already said you understood this. You already, as I was giving you a very detailed and nuanced explanation, you already said you understood. So now you explain it. No, bro. No, you were the one who said, I understand that already. Explain what you think you know. Now, if you say one more thing that is not answering the question I'm asking you, you're getting deported from my fucking channel. Explain it. Last chance. Either explain it or say I don't know. There we go. There we go. It took a dozen fucking chats for you to listen to the fucking question I was asking you and to actually answer the fucking question. Now, your job When you come to this channel, if you are not, if you are going to ask me a question and then you are going to interrupt me as I'm giving you a very detailed, nuanced answer, taking my time to do that, by the way, to teach you shit you don't know, and you then interrupt me and go, I know all that already. And then, of course, we find out you don't know shit. Then we find out you don't know shit. It's time for you to sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen. Do not ever interrupt me when I am taking the time out of my day to explain a concept to you that you obviously do not know. What about sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen? Do you not understand? I am now going to start from the beginning. If I hear any, actually, let's play him the video. Bro, this is an entire video just for you. I need you to pay close attention to this instructional video.
You take your top lip and connect it to your bottom lip, you will shut the fuck up. Sometimes shutting the fuck up is the best thing you can do.
I am now going to explain again from the beginning the answer to your question, and if you backtalk me in any way, I'm deporting you from the fucking channel. This is my classroom. This is not your classroom. I am at the top of the hierarchy. You are not. Brian Bean is not a democratic socialist. Brian Bean is a revolutionary socialist. What that means is he does not believe in elections. So when you come into the chat and you say, is this democratic socialist doing X, Y, B, and Z? He's not a democratic socialist. And you obviously do not know what you're listening to, because democratic socialists believe in elections. They believe in winning a post-capitalist society through winning elections. Zoran Mandami is a democratic socialist. Brian Bean does not believe in elections. He believes in violently overthrowing the U.S. government. When you are bringing up examples like China and North Korea, you are listening to way too much conservative clickbait bullshit, because these people don't even like China. These people believe that China is capitalist, and they're not wrong about that. These people never even talk about fucking North Korea. That is conservative clickbait bullshit. What you need to understand is this person is advocating for the overthrow of the United States government, and your job is to sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen to what he has to say. And if you have a question that is relevant to the discussion, you may ask that question. But what you will not do is interrupt me and disrespect me. We have a hierarchy. You are on the bottom of the hierarchy. There you go.
Ties to the question of police, and that is that just the very notion of crime. I spend one of the chapters of my book to talk about
I need to go back because I don't even remember what he was talking about now. So
talked about, particularly not in the Western world, by people in the ivory towers of academia. You talk about countries like Egypt and the other countries in the Middle East around the Arab Spring. It wasn't talked about that these were democracies, that then people should engage in the political process. It was talked about these are authoritarian states that people had to rise up and resist in mass ways. And I think that those kind of solutions are more what are required here when we begin to poke holes in and tear down the notion that as it currently exists, that we live in a democracy. So I think that's the first component. The second, I think, more ties to the question of police, and that is that just the very notion of crime. I spend one of the chapters of my book to talk about
okay. Here's what you need to know. Socialists believe that capitalism creates all crime, or the vast majority of crime. Socialists believe that if we overthrow capitalism, which means overthrow the government, overthrow the Constitution, all that stuff, they believe that in a Marxist society where capitalism has been abolished, crime will drastically diminish. It's not that they don't believe that people are going to do bad things, but they believe the number of people doing bad things is going to get so small because capitalism is no longer oppressing them. Therefore, capitalism is no longer forcing them to do those bad things like steal and embezzle and whatever the fuck else they're doing, They believe that capitalism forces people into situations where they don't have the resources they need, and thus they have to do crimes in order to have the resources they need. Whereas if we overthrow capitalism, they will have the resources they need and they will not commit those crimes. Again, it's not that they believe they're going to get rid of every single bad person doing every single bad thing, but they believe the number will be so greatly reduced that they will be able to abolish prisons and basically have other ways of dealing with that shit. So capitalism is the root cause of all crime. And if we abolish capitalism, we will basically abolish crime. That is why they want to abolish the police. That is why they want to abolish the prison industrial complex.
That we live in a democracy. So I think that's the first component. The second, I think, more ties to the question of police, and that is...
Oh my God. You just did reply, bro. I can't reply because I'm just going to make it worse. Yeah, you're right. You're just going to make it worse. You're doing the conservative thing thinking I don't... Bro, you fucking retard. You literally said you didn't fucking know. One in the chat if I should permanently ban him. 2 in the chat if I should give him a 24-hour timeout so he learns to shut the fuck up. 3 in the chat if he can stay. Thank you for the coping fees. I appreciate it. 1 in the chat for permanent ban. 2 in the chat for 24-hour timeout so he learns how to shut the fuck up. 3 in the chat if he can stay. You're getting a reprieve, bro. You're getting a 24-hour timeout. You cannot be allowed to speak anymore in the chat today. If you come back tomorrow and you continue behaving like a conservative retard, you will be permanently banned this time.
That is the very notion of crime. I spend one of the chapters in my book to talk about the notion of crime and its connection to policing, because that is the main justification that is given to give this overfunded, hyper-aggressive, violent force such purchase and tools in every city.
Just like,
and it's
actually,
quite pernicious.
Actually fucking unbelievable. Actually, like, I mean, my God, these fucking retards. Guys, if you are new here, you might think you need to be afraid of me. You will only get yelled at if you are being an absolute low IQ fucking retard. If you come into my chat and ask a question that makes no godly sense, I will explain to you why you're wrong. If you backtalk me and whine and complain and then say, I know that, when it's obvious to like everyone that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, you are going to get screamed at. If you continue to whine and complain and then continue to be a retard after we've already publicly embarrassed you once, you have shown us that you are not capable of actually learning. The purpose of this is to learn. If you are incapable of learning, then you do not need to be here. And you do not need to be active in the chat where you are just going to be distracting and confusing to other people. You are here by my consent. Either you want to learn, and we welcome that, and we love it when people come here to learn. But if you want to behave like an unhinged retard, that shit needs to go somewhere else. It is mind-bogglingly fucking frustrating.
Because the things that are often described as crime are things that are often related to people having a hard time due to the economic struggles of the situation at hand. People trying to survive, petty crime, sex work, vagrancy, houselessness, all those sorts of things are considered.
Malcolm. Thank you so much, Malcolm. I appreciate you. It's not hard. Listening is easy. Thanks for the lesson. I appreciate it. I wish I didn't have to yell so much, but like sometimes there is like literally no other way. There's no other way.
What is crime, and not things that we don't hear about quite as much, like global warming, like corporate crimes. White collar crimes are not reported in the same way as the daily beat in like nightly news of like.
All right, we got a question from Virgo Moon. It's okay to get yelled at, but learn your lesson. True. As far as crime, is it that they believe there will be no reason for it? Yes, that is exactly right. When capitalism is abolished and people have access to all of the resources they need, they believe that because people will have access to all of the resources they need, there will be no reason to commit crime. That is exactly right. Well done. Yo, we got some channel memberships. W's in the chat for Chevelle for 5 channel memberships. W's in the chat for Channelago with a channel membership. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. We are now up to 130. You guys rock. Best community on the internet by far.
Here's a mugging, here's a stabbing, here's someone got their stereo taken from their car. Those things create this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty that then is focused on the criminal, who is, of course, racialized and is seen as the thing to be protected against, as opposed to seeing the actual ill in society, the criminal, if you could kind of flip it on their head, as being the billionaire, the corporate head, the head of state, these people who are carrying out the real crimes, up to the point of right now, war and genocide. That is the case. And I think just thinking about what's happening right now in Iran is a clear example of that, which you see millions and billions of dollars are expended in seconds with bombs that are used to destroy people with basically no justification aside from, imperial chest pumping. And
hey, bro, first off, like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Second of all, it doesn't fucking matter. No debunking. Debunking solves nothing.
People in our countries who need a lot of resources, of medical care, of education.
Can we just reflect that, like, literally half my time in these presentations lately has been telling conservatives to shut the fuck up and listen? Guys, the purpose of this is to listen to the left, to dissect what they're saying, to dissect what they believe, to understand what they believe. It is not to get your conservative rocks off on owning the libs. I do not care about your fucking opinion. See this? This dude really believes this. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And the Vanguard means he's part of the revolutionary party that's going to lead the revolution, bro. So I'm not sure you're even using that word correctly. Are we ready to take this seriously now? Because I'm really getting sick of having to stop the stream to tell people literally to shut up and listen. Your opinions do not matter. Your feelings do not matter. Your definitions do not matter. Yes, these people are 100% serious. Yes, these people are winning. They are kicking your ass up and down the playing field every single day. If you do not learn to understand your enemy, you are going to lose and your children are going to suffer. And all you need to do is sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen and ask questions about the content of the presentation. I want to see exactly 0 more owning the libs in the chat. Moon Goddess, you're a great student.
As opposed to seeing the actual ill in society, the criminal, if you could kind of flip it on their head, as being the billionaire, the corporate head, the head of state, these people who are carrying out the real crimes, up to the point of right now, war and genocide. That is the case. And I think just thinking about what's happening right now in Iran is a clear example of that, which you see millions and billions of dollars are expended in seconds with bombs that are used to destroy people with basically no justification aside from, imperial chest pumping. And people in our countries who need a lot of resources, of medical care, of education, of housing, and those things are not allowed. So all the basis of this,
See, he's saying the part of the problem is capitalism takes resources away from people by making them exclusive for the capitalist class. Once the people have the resources they need, they will be less likely to commit crimes because they now have access to the resources they need.
People with basically no justification aside from, imperial chest pumping. And people in our countries who need a lot of resources, of medical care, of education, of housing, and those things are not allowed. So all the basis of this, of thinking about the question of crime and what is wrong with society, is then posited on the criminal. And then the answer is more policing, more violence, that justifies the organized abandonment that occurs in many working class areas, particularly those of Black and brown populations.
Yeah, and I think there are some very trivial examples of that. So one that we talk about in Abolition Revolution is how, you know, if you go to a festival in Britain, like Glastonbury or Reading, these are essentially decriminalized zones where class A drugs can be taken by the middle classes. There's no issue. Another example is there was a study that was done in Parliament, in Britain's Parliament, and there was coke found in almost all of the toilets. So cocaine, class A drug, found in almost all of the toilets, but Parliament doesn't become a site of police terrorism, not by a long stretch. And
they found coke in all of the toilets in Parliament. They found coke in all the fucking toilets in Parliament and they didn't do shit about it. Yeah, if you think they're trying to implement Stalinism with American characteristics, you need to, wait for it, sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen, because they are not Stalinists, bro. They explicitly reject Stalinism. Nice try.
Yeah, it's those very same folk devils.
Remember when they found coke in the White House and they never did anything about it? Yeah, I remember that. That was great. That was great.
Of, you know, the drug user, the drug lord that are used against the working classes to justify, you know, the continual and kind of growing harassment of our communities. That said, there is, for me, a contradiction here that I think as abolitionists we really need to work through, which is that at the same time as the communities, so the communities that have the biggest interest in being anti-police, you know, working class communities, Black communities, traveling communities, who face, you know, the epitome of police violence and police harassment. Sometimes these communities are also the first to say that they want more policing in their communities, because, you know, and there are lots of different kind of ways to understand this. The very communities that are the targets of policing are also the targets of violence and harm under capitalism, so want to be entitled to some kind of protection. But this is fundamentally, you know, a contradiction. It's where things like hate crime legislation comes from. It's where what started off as a grassroots movement for women who are experiencing violence from their partners, and what started off as a squat movement essentially, then became a very pro-police, very pro-criminalization, domestic violence sector. So how do we as abolitionists respond to the contradiction of, you know, the very people who are targets of the worst excesses of police violence also often feel most powerfully that they want to be protected by police?
Yeah. I think you and your co-hosts and your podcast recently was talking about this very thing, like how we need to create a story about crime and about sort of law and order that is accessible to and can win people because of this contradiction. I think is such an important thing to point to. In Chicago, our last mayoral election, there was a poll that was done of Black Chicagoans that I think captured this contradiction you're describing really, really well. And it was that, I don't remember the exact number, but it was over 80% of Black Chicagoans wanted more police because of the concerns about intercommunal violence and sort of things that was a real issue. At the same time, that again, over 80% of Black Chicagoans in the same poll said they did not trust the police, right? And so what breeds this contradiction that you're describing, I think you really see in this poll. And I think there's two ways that I think that we can kind of work on it and try to respond. I'm curious what you think as well. But the first is just to completely puncture the notion that the police have any efficacy in relation to this, right? So it's like, hey, I get that you're really concerned about these ills in your community, but like, let's go through it. And so police are really bad at solving crime. Every criminological study worth its salt says that there's no connection between police force size and reduction of crime, right? You look at some studies that I cite in my book about how often police solve crime. So not charge someone, but for that charge to then wind up being the person being guilty, and adjusted for, of course, all the situations in which people are wrongly found guilty. And it found that police solve crime like less than 2% of the time, which means that you have the same chance of taking a deck of cards and pulling an ace of spades out on your first try as you have of police solving the crime. And so it's like, they're not going to do the thing that you want them to do. If you are mentally ill, you have like a 23% chance of being shot by the police in the United States.
I want to make sure people understand something. I don't like the police. I think the police are an organized gang. I agree with Brian Bean that the police are completely ineffective at doing their jobs. But you might have similar misgivings about the police, or you might be totally back the blue. But I really want you to understand something. If you don't like the police, chances are your reason for not liking the police is extremely different than Brian Bean's reason for not liking the police. So even though we can both say, okay, yeah, bro, we can align on the fact that the police kind of suck. You know what? Yeah, we have that in common. But my reason, and probably your reason for believing the police suck, is very, very different than Brian Bean's reason for believing the police suck. Our solutions to the police sucking, which might be things like reforming things and making changes and stuff like that. Brian Bean does not believe in reformism. He believes in abolition of the police entirely. Abolishing the police, abolishing the prison industrial complex, getting rid of all of it. So our reasons for not liking the police are the same, and our solutions for our misgivings about the police are also not the same. And it's very important that we understand that, okay? Hey, thanks. Should have logged on for the super chat. You make me miss going to class. Well, I hope I'm better than some of the teachers. I certainly yell more probably than some of the teachers you had, but I think I'm also going to teach you more than some of the teachers you had. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
States. And in the US, I think about 30% of police are domestic abusers, with sexual violence being the second highest complaint of all complaints issued against police. So it's like, are these the people that you want responding to domestic violence and to mental health situations? And so I think the first is to kind of just puncture the idea that police actually aren't going to keep you safe. In most cases, they're going to make it worse. And that we can imagine a different way of handling that. And I think that's the other component of it, where the kind of the rubber hits the road. And I think that it's talking about, hey, like, we have to think big in this regard. Like, if we had all the resources of society, and we had all the people who are able to deal with and manage mental health issues, had access to those resources, it is surely the case that with the creativity and imagination and professional skills that they have, that we would be able to create a system that would be able to respond to mental health crisis that is way better than a swaggering body of armed goons, right? And so we can go on down this to talk about, first, the police do not keep us safe. And it actually doesn't take that much imagination to say, hey, adequately resourced and accessing the people who have the knowledge, we would be able to have better solutions to all these social ills than having the police. And we can also imagine that if we try to remake the world in a more equitable, just fashion, that even all the trauma and all the stress that comes from living in the system would even minimize just the very presence of these very same social ills. So I think that's some of it, but I'd be curious what you think about this too. I know you've thought about it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, the first thing for me is some of the ways in which earlier you described how
what would he say if we have the right to self-defense? I mean, he probably would say that you do. But that also might depend on what you mean by self-defense and what he means by self-defense. It depends on the circumstances. But yeah, he probably believes you do actually have the right to self-defense.
teaches us to fear certain individuals. We fear the person that's asking for money on the street. We fear the working class person that takes drugs. We fear the black man who's walking the street at night. The police often kind of internalize these tropes as well, which makes them particularly bad at then responding to harm and violence in society. So I think, for example, of a man called Kingsley Burrell, who was a Brummie from Birmingham, like me. And Kingsley is dead. He was killed by the police, asphyxiation. And he actually called the police because he was experiencing a mental health crisis. And he called the police to get help from them. He called them to say, essentially, look, I'm having a terrible time and I need help. And he ended up dead. And, those stories multiply so many times. I think of Sean Rigg. I think of Smiley Culture, people who kind of end up in the company of the police and then end up dead. And so I think not only do we have to say that police are not good at solving crimes and are not good at responding to harm and violence, we also need to say that police often multiply that harm and violence. Police are often the core contributors to harm and violence. Another story that we talk about in the book is the story of Koshka Duff. Now, Koshka Duff wasn't a black man. I don't believe she was working class. In fact, she was a lecturer, so you might argue that she was part of the professional classes. And she had the temerity to hand a young black boy a bust card. He was being stopped and searched by the police, and she handed him a bust card to tell him what his rights were. She ended up getting arrested. This is a white woman, a lecturer, a professional. She ended up getting arrested and sexually assaulted by police officers, women police officers even, laughed at as she was strip searched. And the officer who was kind of running the station at the time co-signed it all and watched on as she was being assaulted by officers. So I think we also need to argue that, and we make this point in the book, that there is also something psychological that happens to the officers who end up in this role when you are given the power to indiscriminately arrest people, stop people, cuff people, restrain people, tase people. And I say indiscriminately because it's the ideology that makes it indiscriminate. If you can just say, well, that person's a criminal, or that person's dangerous, or you should fear that person, then your powers become indiscriminate because you can just apply these kind of ideological loopholes to anyone. And something happens psychologically to groups of people who were given this unrestrained power. And we see that in communities all the time. And we see that in the working class community, we see that in the traveler community, we see that in the Black community. And then I think finally for me, there's something about what is de facto illegal and what is de jure illegal. If you want to talk about a system that really doesn't work for kind of protecting the ordinary person, and it's exactly what you said, Brian, that system is the current one.
Guess what? The loser we gave a reprieve to for 24 hours and told him to sit down and shut the fuck up and actually listen, guess what happened? That loser is now whining on Twitter, tagging me. Karlyn, are you dressing me down for trying to figure out the lay of the land? I literally asked to understand. Hey, bro, guess what? Reprieve revoked. Your ass is getting deported from the channel, and you're also getting blocked on Twitter. Goodbye. Permaban. Good. See, I knew against my better judgment. I was like, why don't we give this person a chance to learn how to literally shut the fuck up? Because conservatives actually just don't know how to shut the fuck up. They really, really do. So now I have to go back and find him because when I banned him, it took away the fucking chat that I had saved. Hang on. I'm going to find him. I'm going to permanently ban him. If he ever comes back to the channel again, we're going to ban him then. Yep. Send him to the Hague. Listen, conservatives, if I grant you a reprieve and I say, sit down and shut the fuck up for 24 hours, and your first instinct is to go to Twitter and whine about the fact that I told you to sit down and shut the fuck up for 24 hours, it's over. It's over. Bye. Don't come back.
It's not, the one imagined by abolitionists. That's not the system that doesn't work. The system that doesn't work is the one that we are living in and
Yeah, I know,
have
but I
lived
need to
in.
see his account in the chat.
Those of us who work, who have the unfortune to have to work, know that, if someone dies on your watch at work, you get in trouble. You get fired. If you're in a role for 200 years and not once have you ever been able to fulfill the stated aims of your role, you'd be fired. So why is it the case that we have these police forces and we are comfortable with the idea that these forces that existed for 200 years and gone through various different iterations of serving the people, its supposed aim, although we know that that's not actually its aim, and it has continuously failed for 200 years.
The fuck? Where
How
did this
is
come
it
from?
that we can then say that,
Go away.
no, if we just tinker with this one more thing, if we tinker with that thing, if we tinker...
Yeah, thanks for the super chat. Unfortunately, our politicians present a failing campaign in support of maintaining our current system by flaunting disgusting daily... Yeah, I don't even want to talk about the disgusting daily behavior of politicians at this point. It's just like, I cannot, guys, on election night in November, we're going to have a fucking party. We are going to have a party. We are going to have a celebration on election night in November. Every single time a conservative retard loses their race, we are going to celebrate. We should abandon. Well, it's a lesson learned. I wanted to give him another chance too. I made the decision to give another chance, and it doesn't always work out that way. We're going to have a party. It's going to be a celebration, and we're going to be cheering, and we're going to be saying, "Fuck you, assholes! You deserved it." And that's just going to be the way it is. And if people want to have feelings about that, I don't care. You know what it's going to be? Oh, I'm on the wrong path. This channel's on the wrong path. Hey, guess what, bro? Permanent ban. Bye. We're not going to make that mistake again. We're not going to make that mistake again. It's going to be like an election night 2022. Who was here on election night in 2022? Because here's what happened in 2022. In April or May of 2022, when the draft decision of Roe v. Wade got released, I said 6 months prior to the midterms in 2022, I said conservatives are going to get their asses kicked in the midterms and they have no idea what's coming. And then I got dragged all over the internet for it. I was called a baby killer all over the internet by conservatives. Like, they were unhappy that I told them that they were going to get their ass kicked in the midterms in 2022, and they didn't want to fucking listen. And then what happened? Does anyone remember what happened on election night in 2022? Oh, it turns out that I was completely right with every single thing that I said, and conservatives got their fucking asses kicked. And it was entirely because of Roe v. Wade, because the Democratic Party used Roe v. Wade to raise more money and register more young voters than like any fucking time in history. And it was all because of the overturn of Roe v. Wade, which I told conservatives not to start fucking with in the first place. And they didn't want to listen. They said, you just want to murder babies. And by the way, even in states where conservatives have so-called banned abortion, they're still smuggling abortion pills into those states. Women are still having abortions in those states. They're doing it in their own home. They get sent the abortion pills in the mail. Like, all of this stuff is still happening today. Conservatives don't know about this because they don't fucking pay attention, and all they do is whine and complain on the internet. But like, that celebration that we had on election night in 2022, when it turned out that I was still a beginner political analyst back then, I was actually shocked to be right. I didn't expect to be as right as I was. Now I am a veteran political analyst. I've been doing this a long time. I'm almost always right about every single thing that I say. The celebration we had back in 2022 is going to pale in comparison to the celebration that we are going to have with the blue wave that is coming in November of 2026.
with that. I think these are quite powerful arguments, and I think there are some on the right who are just realists about this stuff, who are like, actually, well, yeah, the police aren't there to keep you safe; they're there to keep the bourgeois and capitalist classes safe. And I think we have to be realists about what the police are here to do as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. That it's like, well, you look around and like the system doesn't work, like it's not working. And there's the first major investigation of the police, at least in the United States, was in New York City in 1894. So like 50 years after it came about. So the first major investigation of the police, the findings were on the front page of the New York Times, all caps, the entire department corrupt. And then it goes on to say, every occupation, almost every citizen was dominated by an all-controlling and overshadowing dread of the police department. And so it's the same. It's been tried over and over again. The funding has been increased more and more.
Can you tag me in this or send this to me? I'd like to see it.
More and more. The capacity for violence has increased more and more and more. And it's like worse. And so at a certain point, it's like, give it up. And I think that's kind of what you're describing. And sort of noticing how bad they are at their job, particularly in thinking about when you fail, when someone dies. And I think about the fact that police departments in the United States give out billions of dollars in settlements for their misdoing, and just the ones they admit to happening, right? Billions of dollars. And like, imagine if you work for some other state institution. You're a garbage collector. You work in the library. If the library system did so poorly, they had to pay out billions of dollars because of them doing a bad job, it'd be closed down in a second.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's not, because it is the preferred and essential tool the capitalist state uses to hold the whole system together and organize it. So they're fine to spend that because it's worth it for them, because they have all the money in the world, because they own everything. I think it really comes out there.
And so much of this is common sense when you really dig down into people's lived experience of safety. The vast majority of people in London, and by the way, I just want to preface this by saying a lot of these things are overhyped precisely so that more money is pumped into the police force. But, if your house gets burgled in London, you're not getting your stuff back. The police not only can't do anything, they just won't. They don't bother to invest in investigating where your belongings went. If your bike gets stolen, tough. Get another one. Like, you got to track it down or get another one. And so actually, when you point to these experiences that everyday people have, it makes sense. You then ask the question, well, why? Why is it that an institution can be such a failure and we still invest,
that's not coming
and
up for
we still
me.
propagate, and we still support? And then that raises the question, well, maybe it's not a failure. Maybe we just don't properly understand what its purpose is. And I think that really gets us into some fruitful places. So I wanted to, that's a lot of the theory, which I know it's my comfort zone, but I wanted to also talk a little bit about the movement and the politics of the movement, and to start kind of drawing questions around organizing.
Okay,
out.
Just ask. You don't have to just ask the question. You don't have to ask permission to ask the question. Just ask the question, please.
So in Abolition Revolution, the book that I co-wrote with Evia, we talk about 2020 to 2022 as being the years where abolition as a radical theoretical framework really began to break through within the mass mobilizations of the Black Lives Matter movement. And in Britain, and certainly in the US, there were mainstream debates about policing that did begin to put pressure on liberal politicians. And although they broke all of their promises, that pressure matters. But also these arguments and these debates and these frameworks mobilize millions around the world. But I think what is sometimes masked by, for example, the debate on do you defund the police or not, is that there are different traditions underpinning how different people and different organizers understand abolition. On the one hand, I mentioned defund. You've got this notion of defunding the police, which I think, where it makes sense, you should do that. But fundamentally, we have an idea here that is about moving state resources around and leaving the state intact. And that's quite a different perspective of, say, the abolitionism of people like Adam Elliott Cooper, who's an organizer and a writer.
Thank you.
Who comes more from the Black
Appreciate it.
radical tradition. His argument was more that abolition is a vehicle to imagine a completely new world. That, you know, we should really kind of look to abolition as a modern way of doing revolutionary politics. So my question to you is kind of twofold. On the one hand, in your book, it feels to me that your lens of approaching the question of abolition is through the question of the state and a critique of the capitalist state and capitalism itself.
By the way, I just want to add this, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about this, I promise. And then we'll listen to their critique of the capitalist state, whatever. The guy that we banned after giving him a reprieve because he went over to Twitter to whine, earlier in the day, he was literally whining in my replies about me buying the Balenciaga mini backpack because I'm satanic if I buy a Balenciaga bag. I just didn't realize it was the same person until I started seeing him whine on Twitter after we banned him from the chat. Then I realized he was already whining in my replies once about buying a fucking Balenciaga backpack. Can we fucking get serious, please? You are a Satanist because you bought a bag from a brand whose marketing I didn't like one time. Yeah, we're all satanic on stolen land. Yeah. Yeah. True. True. Okay, Moon Goddess in with the question. Do these people believe in the transgender deal? Yes, they do. Or is it just a means to an end to set their goal of things like, so they're not transing your kids to abolish parental rights. Abolishing parental rights is a logical outcome of them wanting to abolish capitalism. But yes, do they believe in allowing kids to be transgendered? Yes, they do. But they also don't think that kids should be medicalized. For the most part, actually. They believe that they don't believe anyone needs to be medicalized to be trans. They believe that the medicalization of kids is actually a problem created by capitalism because capitalism wanted those kids to be lifelong medical patients. So that's the answer to that. It was a little oddly worded. I'm not sure I answered it, but it's fine. I don't. Yeah, well, exactly. We'll just get him out then. Okay, bro, you need to cut the shit. Okay, stop. I know someone else asked a question, but I can't find it in the chat now. So if the person who asked the question wants to ask it again, I apologize. I can't find it in the chat now. Yeah, Thor's Rune over on Rumble says, get thee behind me, Balenciaga. Yeah. You know what? I don't even give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. If conservatives want to say I'm satanic because I own a mini backpack, then I feel like we've jumped the shark, conservatives. If your standards for satanic behavior is really so low that me owning a backpack by a brand who did a marketing campaign that you don't like, if this is the bar that we have reached, that this backpack is proof of my Satanism, I'm still going to own the backpack. You want to know why? Because the backpack's fucking awesome. Do not care. Have they learned anything from the 90s? No, they learned nothing. No. They said it was the Democrats in the 90s because it was all Tipper Gore, not them. Sure.
Feels to me that your lens of approaching the question of abolition is through the question of the state.
Yeah, Satan loves
and a critique of the capitalist state and capitalism itself. So my first question is, how should we understand revolutionary abolitionism from your perspective? And can you talk us through how the state organizes violence and why the state is a focus for you in your book?
Yeah. Glad we're moving out of the theoretical, right?
No, I'll go back to the organizing.
right. Yeah. So why I focus on the state? I think that I focus on the state because we are going to organize for various reforms. We're going to have demands that are not the whole shebang, which is how we're going to talk to people, how we're going to kind of tell those stories like we were talking about before, how we convince people that, hey, there is another world that's possible, and here's kind of what it might look like. Here's some things we can do about it in the immediate, right? Okay, let's have police stop responding to mental health calls. That's easy. Through people engaging in struggle, we can try to say, hey, we won this, we can win more, to draw lessons about the relationship to who has power, to democracy.
I don't like Prada.
But I think that when talking about a movement to change,
Except there have been some Prada bags lately that I've been kind of like, do I like Prada? But for the most part, I think Prada is actually really fucking boring.
parts of the system, it cuts to what is the point? Why are police here? Which is kind of what we were talking about before. Okay, so they're not for keeping people safe.
Actually, not to derail my own fucking stream, but it's my stream. I'll do what I want. Coach bags are good quality. Like, people shit on Coach. I mean, I actually, well, I owned Coach back in the day. I haven't owned Coach in years, but like, the thing of it is Coach bags are actually very, very, very well made. If you take them apart and you actually look at the quality of materials, the quality of craftsmanship, the quality of letters, like Coach is like an extremely affordable way, relatively speaking, to get like a very well-made leather bag. So I don't think anyone, like, people shit on Coach. Like, I don't think people should be shitting on Coach. Like, their stuff is actually really fucking nice. And if people want to buy Coach because that's just their thing, they should totally fucking buy Coach. Like, who cares? Why not? I have a bunch of no-named brand bags that people have never heard of just because I like them and I think they're fucking cool. Like, buy what you want. Who cares? Yeah. Oh, resellers are making a fucking killing on Coach right now. People look for Coach, man. They like Coach. So whatever. I got some game. But there's a guy on YouTube, actually. There's a guy on YouTube, if people have never seen this channel, I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but he actually gets bags from like luxury companies and he takes them apart. And he's like an expert in leather and craftsmanship and like all that stuff. And he even says, like, he took a Coach bag apart and he took a Louis Vuitton bag apart. And he's like, yeah, the Coach bag is actually better quality than the Louis Vuitton. And honestly, like, I think I do have Louis Vuitton bags and I like my Louis Vuitton bags. I think Louis Vuitton is completely overrated for most of their stuff. Like, for the monogram stuff, I'm so fucking sick of the LV monogram on every fucking thing. LV does make cool bags. They make better bags than just like the brown monogram shit. But like, it just because like it's more expensive doesn't actually mean it's better quality. Coach is actually, yes, this guy. Coach is actually like better quality than some LV bags. So whatever, man. Buy what you like. Who the hell cares? I like Ferragamo. Ferragamo is extremely undervalued and extremely underrated when it comes to luxury bags. You can get a really nice, I got a really fucking nice Ferragamo for a couple $100. That's like, if that Ferragamo purse had LV on it, it would have sold for like well over $1,000, because some people just care about the fucking brands. They don't want anything that's like not LV or not Chanel or like whatever. Who the fuck cares? Buy what you like.
They are doing their job quite well. What function do they play in the capitalist state? And their function in the capitalist state is they are the monopoly on legitimate violence. So the police, as you said before, can use violence with maximum discretion. At any point, they could beat you up and shoot you and pretty much get away with it. And that is legitimate. But any violence that anyone else does, particularly if it's directed at the state or sort of oppressors, is usually considered illegitimate. And that is the kind of the threat of violence that underpins the entire system. So you look at the legal order, everything that the state wants us to do. Drive this way, pay your taxes, don't protest here, get out of the street, don't stand here. All those things that maintain the order of the system have a or else behind that command. And that or else, sometimes said, sometimes unsaid, has behind that the policeman's gun.
You know, listen, we're evolving the content of the channel this year. We're going to do this thing called Karlyn is going to be a fucking human being this year and talk about other things besides socialism because, you know, listen, I need to diversify the types of things I'm interacting with. And so you guys are getting luxury bags because that's what it makes me happy. It makes me happy. No, the link that he sent in, it's on Polymarket. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, if you want to DM that to me on Twitter, or like tag me in it on Twitter, that would be awesome. I appreciate it.
And the policeman's baton. And so it is the violence that undergirds the entire legal order. What does that mean for organizing? It means that while we are struggling, even for the small things, if we see that this is the thing that...
Should I place a bet on Polymarket right now? Should I place my first ever bet on Polymarket that the Democrats are going to like slaughter in the midterms? I think I might do that. Unironically, I think I might actually do that. That's well, you know, actually, you know what's funny? So politics does not get brought up a lot on Whatnot. But every once in a while, some fucking liberal white woman in the chat brings up politics. And there was one day I was watching a purse show and they had Dolce & Gabbana in the rotation. Now, like, I think their stuff is okay. I don't have any Dolce & Gabbana, but like some of their stuff is actually kind of cool, like whatever. But the person in the chat was like, I will never buy a D&G bag because of so many controversies with the design house. And then the other women in the chat were like, what do you mean controversies? And the original woman in the chat that was complaining, she was like, they're racist and they enforce the patriarchy. They're misogynist. And so I immediately chatted in. I was like, well, I guess I'm about to buy some D&G, aren't I? I was like, I'm going to have to get some of that racist D&G. Also, another story. Last night, I was watching a show on Whatnot. I was watching my favorite show on Whatnot. And the guy selling the bags, he started saying, I need at least $6 million for this bag. Like, obviously, he's being hyperbolic. But he had this really nice LV. And he said, guys, if I'm going to auction this bag, I need at least $6 million for this bag. And I chatted in. I was like, 6 million? That seems a bit high. No one in the chat got the joke. I was the only one that got the joke. But it was fucking hilarious. And he only made $2,000 on the bag. He did not make $6 million. So I was technically right. The 6 million ask was, in fact, a bit high. Hey, thanks so much for the super chat, Chevelle. I know nothing about luxury bags, but at least you aren't talking about Vera Bradley. Oh, no, fuck Vera Bradley. That Vera Bradley's for old ladies. They're kind of a big deal around here, apparently. Yo, yeah, like the women in my family fucking love Vera Bradley. I don't get it. I guess their stuff is like, but it's like pretty old lady. It's like, I don't get it. If you want pretty things, get a Dior bag. Dior bags are beautiful. They're much prettier than fucking Vera Bradley.
That the ruling class has, that is their most important tool. It's how they maintain their order.
Yeah, me mom was a
the ruling class is not just going to give that up out of a good argument or of small demands. But when we're talking about getting rid of the police, we're talking about ending state violence, we're talking about ridding the capitalist class and their state of their primary tool they use to hold together all their ill-gotten wealth. And so that has to be connected to any movement about building for reforms or broader movement, because it sets the case about like what you're up against. And we have to be clear about that, because if you sacrifice some of that bigger vision to opportunistically win something small, then maybe you'll get that small thing. But it's like, well, why are they seeding that? And it's seeding that because they want to maintain their monopoly on violence. They want to maintain this thoroughly violent order that is holding up this entire system that, of course, has all types of other kinds of violence through
capitalism,
poverty, and through oppression that are present as well. And so,
okay, when he's talking about the system, he means capitalism. Capitalism creates poverty. Capitalism creates violence. Capitalism creates crime. Capitalism creates oppression. Socialism and luxury bags. What a combo. Yeah, where else are you getting this shit on the internet? Where else are you getting the best analysis of the far left on the internet and recommendations on luxury handbags? Okay.
Because if you sacrifice some of that bigger vision to opportunistically win something small, then maybe you'll get that small thing. But it's like, well, why are they seeding that? And it's seeding that because they want to maintain their monopoly on violence. They want to maintain this thoroughly violent order that is holding up this entire system that, of course, has all types of other kinds of violence through poverty and through oppression that are present as well. And so I focus on the state because if you put where the function of the police are, what is their utility for those that we oppose, then it should shine a light on how we talk about what our aim is and then what we have to do to get there. One example that I mentioned in the book is I talk about Atlanta's Cop City. And so the movement in Atlanta to stop the building of this massive police training facility that also would cut down a lot of green space was met with all the tools of police violence. They threw out democracy. They didn't allow for petitions. They carried out SWAT raids on people's homes. They charged organizers with RICO cases and terrorism charges. They executed Tortuguita in the woods. So they laid out all these arrays of violence and repression only for a community saying, hey, we don't want a new shiny training facility. They're not even talking about taking away their guns. They're not even talking about abolishing the police. They're saying we don't want to spend this money for more training, and the state came in with all its ferocity.
Well, that's not exactly what happened. That's not exactly what happened with Cop City. There was a whole fucking initiative to try to sabotage the whole thing, and that's why the police went after them. It wasn't just a group of peaceful protesters who are saying no Cop City, and they're holding their no. This was a group of revolutionary communists that were working to sabotage that whole thing. That's why they got arrested and all that stuff.
That should paint a picture for us about what is the task ahead, what we're really talking about when we're talking about trying to move to abolish the
They were
police.
innocent, yeah.
So how do we win this argument then in organizing spaces? And I think there are two examples of kind of where it's really difficult to have these arguments with other organizers who come from different traditions. One is, I remember hearing this during kind of the Black Lives Matter movement, where people would say, well, you can't focus on that kind of revolutionary horizon or that socialist horizon or that Marxist horizon, because we need to be focused on Black lives being murdered now. And actually, yes, of course, we do need to focus on Black lives being murdered now, but how do you win people, or how, from your organizing experience, have you had the argument with people that actually we need to have this revolutionary horizon?
I mean, I think it's a lot of it is the art of the kind of yes and. So it's like we have to immediately accept the very real personal immediacy of the demands we're fighting for now and being a part of those fights. So I don't think the revolutionary movement should just stand on the corner and shout revolution, right? We have to be a part of the struggle and in that room, but to be what the British socialist Karlyn Borysenko called it, the intransigent minority. So being the people who are in the room, who are building the relationship, who are being the best fighters against this or that various thing with your local department, but always then connecting that up to the greater picture. And the argument for it, kind of like you're saying, is that to talk about its necessity. Like, yes, we want to do everything we can to stop the immediate violence that's happening. And that violence is always going to be immediate and is never going to be fully remediated without us talking about the big picture. So like, I'm here, we're doing it. And like, this is part of the process that we also are trying to connect to the larger, more transformative revolutionary movements and demands.
Do you think that also applies to electoral projects as well? So, the most recent example that comes to mind is Zohran Mamdani's win in New York, winning the morality there, and how kind of some of the arguments I've seen, and I'm not fully au fait with them because I'm in Britain, but one of the arguments I've seen is that, well, actually, if we want that kind of abolitionist horizon, maybe there's something in kind of seizing the state machinery to lay the structural foundations to get there. Do you have much truck for that version of the argument as well? That, you know, sometimes maybe we need to lay down some of our radicalism to kind of build the structural possibilities?
I think it is always that.
Sarah Fields is still fucking whining on Twitter. Imagine continuing to buckle down on this. Imagine saying the following sentence: the rape grooming is actually done is protected by free speech. If this woman, in quotes, let me just put this in the, oh shit, that's not what I want to do. That's not what I want to do. That's okay. You guys just saw my chat GPT. It's no big deal. If you guys want to reply to Sarah Fields and tell her to go fuck herself, there is the, actually, that's the link to Dragon Tail. Hang on. That's not the right link. This is the right link. This is the right link. You got to reply directly to Sarah Fields because she's a stupid, dumb cunt. If this woman was researched in any way, she would know that Texas public schools have sovereign immunity. They cannot be sued. That's actually not true, Sarah, because I know people have sued the Texas schools over different things. So, okay, wrong again, bitch. And that myself and others are working to fix this because we know the real world works. Okay, so Sarah, then why aren't you doing it in other states? What state does Sarah Fields live in? Does she even have it on her? Oh, she doesn't have it on her profile. She doesn't have it on her profile. What? Sarah, there are 49 other states, you dumb cunt. Can you name one other state where there's a lawsuit where parents have sued the schools over grooming their kids? Can you name one other state? There are 49 other states. You want to take Texas off the table? Fine. There are 49 other fucking states. Can't name one in which parents have sued the schools over grooming their fucking kids. Do you know why she can't name one? Because it hasn't fucking happened. It hasn't fucking happened. And they'll say, is this case and there's that case. Okay, the parents have sued the schools about some things. They absolutely have not sued the school over grooming their kids. They cannot name one fucking lawsuit that has happened. And so their answer to that, guys, Sarah Fields cares so much about grooming in schools that instead of going out and finding parents to sue the schools that have groomed their kids, she instead says, Karlyn is the real problem. She is a pedophile. Sarah Fields has spent more time today smearing me than she has protecting kids in school. Sarah Fields today has spent more time defaming me than she has in trying to convince parents to sue the schools for grooming their fucking kids. I'm not making an AI song about her. She's a fucking piece of toxic garbage. She's not getting a fucking AI song. She's not fucking relevant. I'm someone who wants to fix things. It's much better than grifting on the internet calling other women cunts. You dumb bitch. You're saying I'm not a woman in your post. Do these people even hear themselves? Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. Again, Sarah Fields is kicking and screaming because I'm right. She knows I'm right. She can't argue. Oh, of course Poetry Painter is in her replies. Of course the fat cunt Poetry Painter is in her replies. Who the fuck cares? None of these people have priorities. Literally none of these people have priorities at all. Whatever. Keep crying, Sarah. Keep crying, bitch.
What cost? So I think electoral politics is certainly a foray that the left should be involved in. I do have some concerns about the left project that ties itself towards winning executive office, because then that puts you at charge of being basically the
Sarah Fields definitely does not have a job except to shill Israel's bullshit. Hey, Moon Goddess, thank you for the question. When they are protesting like the ICE facilities, I heard they put the ridiculous trans like in animal costumes. Well, Why are you saying the people in the animal costumes are trans? I don't know where you heard that. The people in the animal costumes are not trans. I mean, there might be a trans person that put one on at some point, but like, there's not a correlation between someone in one of those animal costumes and people being trans. Most of them are just normal people. So I would say that's the first step, is realizing that they're not in the costumes because they're trans. They're in the costumes because they're far left revolutionaries. No, well, then you should have been watching my stream and not other people's streams, because listen, I can't control what retards on the internet say. I can't control that. Like, if Tommy is saying that everyone in those costumes is trans, do not take what Tommy says as the fucking end all be all truth. Tommy isn't even near the people in the costumes. Tommy is several blocks away. He can't even see inside those costumes. How the fuck does he know? Nope. No. They're not furries. They're not furries. That's a completely different thing.
Executive of the capitalist state, whether it's the federal, state, or local. And I think that brings a bunch of challenges that we see with the Mamdani moment. And I think that people should win office. I think sometimes in order to win office, we may change how we say things, but we should be clear about what's being sacrificed. So Mamdani, for example, his community safety plan is very good. It has a lot of the positive demands that we'd want around housing, around mental health, around ending of the special police unit. I forget its name at the moment. So there's a lot of yes. So there's a lot of the really good demands that we have, fought for a while. Is it going to make it easier to fight for those demands with him in office? Perhaps, but I think then it's like, then how does the movement do it? And does the movement say, well, then he's going to carry it through, or it still needs a combative militant movement that sometimes is a contest against him? And I think that the question about what we sacrifice is doubly underscored by, I think, how you've seen his narrative around policing shift as he got closer and closer to the election. So the demands were very clear. We want a different kind of public safety. But he couched that with, because then it will allow police to do their job. It will free up police to do the thing they're supposed to do. And he went on air to apologize.
I'm gonna make it real simple for you. And I hate to be this brass tacks about it. I show you primary source evidence no one else shows you. Don't trust anyone. Do not trust anyone. Trust no conservative commentators. If they're just look at the primary source evidence. Don't even trust me. Look at the primary source evidence. If other people are not showing you, if someone is not going up to those people in those costumes and saying, look, those are trans people, and then you can see that they're trans people with your own eyes, do not trust that person. If that person is saying, pinky swear, trust me, bro, they're all satanic transhumanists, do not trust that fucking person. Just don't trust them. I'm showing you primary source evidence, and I'm going over it time and time and time again so that you can see for yourself directly from the source. In an ideal world, you will be able to access this information without me even being involved. Do not take opinions from other people who are not showing you primary source evidence. And by the way, if you disagree with my interpretation of the primary source evidence and you can back that up, then make the argument. People do it all the time. But don't trust me. Don't trust other people. Just trust the primary source evidence.
For calling the police racist in the past, right? And so what is lost there? I think what is lost there is that the question about consciousness around policing is actually an important thing. And if we think about the 2020 rebellion, the Black Lives Matter rebellion, one of the things that I think was most powerful about it is how it changed people's consciousness around policing. Like you described, all of a sudden everyone was thinking about abolition, and the notion that police keep us safe goes into other sort of liberal arenas and are punctured and problematized in a lot of different ways. And so if we think about the legitimacy of policing being greatly challenged, What does it mean when, in order to win the mayorship, one has to underscore the legitimacy of policing? The problem isn't policing itself, but the problem is they're doing other stuff that they shouldn't be doing. We need to get them back to the core concept of fighting crime. What does it mean to say, well, are they a racist institution? Yes or no? Like, if we're seeding those things, we're actually seeding massive ideological ground, which is how we fight the legitimacy of policing that underscores people. It's not just going to be an ideological fight because consciousness changes in struggle, but I think getting that balance is part of, I think, the challenge when you think about engaging with electoral politics. And I think that problematization is especially the case if you are engaging electoral politics to an executive office. I think you're just freed up more to be an actual opposition when you're not in the executive, but if you're in a city council or a parliament or Congress or something like that.
Yeah, and what you said actually goes back to our understanding of the history of policing, its origins, and the role of policing. You know, oftentimes people are very, very willing to critique the police on the basis of its violence, of its brute, overt violence. And that is kind of one part of how the police maintain control, build consent to its power, and kind of coerce the working class and population to kind of behave, essentially. But the other side of police power is its soft power, is, its recruitment drives to bring in more women officers or more LGBT officers or more Black officers to make the police look more like the populations it's serving. It's this idea of reforming the police. If we can tinker with the edges, we can make it more palatable. And I think back to the Scarman report of 1985 that promised institutional reforms, the McPherson report of 1999 that promised institutional reforms, and how actually oftentimes, I think of the McPherson report, after it, the movement ebbed. People believed in
well,
this.
This is an interesting question. Do they see Mondami as one of their own? Some do and some don't. But by and large, okay, there are some revolutionary socialists that believe Zoran Mondami isn't really on our team, but I guess it's better than nothing. I guess, it's not like the worst thing that's ever happened, blah, blah, blah. There are some revolutionary communists who believe that Zoran Mondami is a traitor to the revolutionary cause, and they believe that he is like the worst thing that's ever happened, and they believe that that he's just going to get sucked into the capitalist class, and that he's going to be like a tool of the system, and blah 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 blah. So it really does depend, but overall, what you need to understand is that we are watching revolutionaries. Zoran Mondami is a reformist. Revolutionaries generally feel that reformists are one of the biggest things standing in their way of actually having a revolution, because reformists are still upholding the current system. But I've definitely heard like revolutionaries say something to the effect of like, I guess it's okay, like, whatever, it's not the end of the fucking world. But then there are some revolutionaries that are like militantly against any reformists and actually consider them to be a worse traitor than the Democrats. So it really does just depend. It's a good question, though.
Reports capacity to kind of change the violence of police, and stop and search in Black communities got worse. And then we ended up with the 2023 Casey report that was off the back of the Black Lives Matter movement, Kill the Bill movement, the movement for Sarah Everard, who was murdered by Metropolitan Police Force. And it's the same thing. People put their kind of faith in these mechanisms.
Revolutionaries and reformists both have the goal of overthrowing capitalism. This is what makes them different from Democrats, socialists, and progressives. Democrats, socialists, and progressives do not want to overthrow capitalism. Progressives get right up to the line where progressives are like basically everything but overthrow capitalism. Then you have liberals who really don't want to overthrow capitalism. They just want things to be fair and nice. And then you've got the Democrats, which are completely just corporatist and support corporate like policies and stuff like that. Revolutionary socialists want to overthrow capitalism by violently overthrowing the government. DSA types want to overthrow capitalism through reforms via elections and just making small incremental changes over time. So they do have the same goal. You're right about that. They just have different ideas about how to achieve those goals. And the reformists believe that the DSA's, the revolutionaries believe that the DSA's reformism is actually a hindrance to the pure revolutionary cause. And so they tend not to agree on that, but they do work together. Like, it's not as though like people won't work together across those lines, but fundamentally their strategies are completely different. Thank you for asking a question. I appreciate it.
Of soft power. And so when you talk about kind of what is lost and you talk about that kind of ideological front,
trying to make
we have to ask ourselves in the moments where, for example, we are taking executive power and we are kind of making a critique of the most violent excesses of policing, but also buttressing that by giving then consent to the notion of policing. So I noted how kind of Mamdani tweeted the other day how, you shouldn't throw snowballs at police officers, and this propaganda that
they're pissed off at Mamdani. They're like, Mamdani likes the police. This is actually a real thing. So, like, revolutionary socialists and communists are pissed off at Zohar Mamdani for supporting the police, funding the police, telling people don't throw snowballs at the police. Like, they do not agree with Zohar Mamdani on this issue. Listen.
Buttressing that by giving then consent to the notion of policing. So I noted how kind of Mamdani tweeted the other day how, you shouldn't throw snowballs at police officers, and, this propaganda that softens and humanizes the police force. There is something lost there in terms of the legitimization of policing as an institution and as a function. And yeah, you're right that we have to think really, really carefully about that.
Yes.
I do want to transition though, just for the last part of this conversation, out of the West. This conversation has been on kind of the British context and the US context. I want to take us out of there because I think one of the truly brilliant parts of your book, and how I interpreted it actually was a bit of a critique of some abolitionist thinking that often romanticizes the past. So, we look back to indigenous approaches to transformative justice and we say, well, if only we could do it like that, not taking into account the fact that these practices took place in entirely different modes of economic production, so aren't just transferable from one context to another. There's either that or approaches to abolition that are hyper-local, so that focus almost entirely on the neighborhood or the community or the home. These sites of struggle are important, but they're not the totality of abolition. So what I thought was fantastic about your book is you actually reference and you talk really powerfully about abolitionist rehearsals in more familiar contexts in South America, in the Arab Spring, and we tried to do similarly by talking about the End SARS movement in Nigeria. But can you tell us some of those stories? Can you kind of bring those abolitionist rehearsals to life and tell us a little bit about what you think some of the key lessons from them are?
Yeah. In the book, I focus a chapter on expanding, because I think that particularly in the US, so much of how we talk about abolition and the movement is in the US police. And there's a reason for that that's not just like localism, but it's also like, the US police is exceptionally violent in many ways. But if you think about what have been the victories, even if they're temporary kind of rehearsals, like you describe it, there are many, many lessons of struggles that have, I think, gone beyond where we have been in the US to draw from. And so in the book, I talk about Oaxaca in 2006, Derry, occupied Northern Ireland in the late 60s, early 70s, the Arab Spring in 2011, and in South Africa, and then, of course, the Russian Revolution in 1917. But in all those examples, you saw mass movements that, in many cases, literally ran the police off the streets. And so the police were, in a way, like abolished for days in some places, months in places like Oaxaca and in the Arab Spring, or even years in places like in Russia or in Derry, Northern Ireland. And I think that raises a series of examples, which is first, if you're going to organize against anything, at a certain point you encounter the police. So many of these movements didn't start about police repression. Eamon McCann, who I interviewed about the movement in Derry, said the people's attitude towards the police was determined by the behavior of the police themselves. So people go out because of the undemocratic conditions, because of economic misery. And at a certain point, you encounter the police, and usually the police behave in a way that then can radicalize the protest, right? So that if you organize against anything, you encounter the police. That's lesson number one.
This is actually important for people to understand. Okay, listen. When the far left goes out to these protests, one of the things they try to do purposefully is to provoke the police. So when you see Antifa throwing stuff at the police at these protests, or like getting right up in their faces and yelling at them, they are trying to provoke the police to do something violent that they can then get on video and they can use to spread propaganda. Provoking the police is part of the game they're playing. They're very purposeful about this. They write whole zines about doing this. And so people need to understand that that is part of the overall strategy, so that they can say, look at how violent the police are. They always just attack us. We're just peaceful protesters.
Eamon McCann, who I interviewed about the movement in Derry, said the people's attitude towards the police was determined by the behavior of the police themselves. So people go out because of the undemocratic conditions, because of economic misery. And at a certain point, you encounter the police, and usually the police behave in a way that then can radicalize the protest, right? So that if you organize...
What he's saying, you go out and protest, and then they're protesting peacefully, and the police behave in a way that radicalizes the protest against the police.
Against anything, you encounter the police. That's lesson number one. Lesson two is that also police violence is such a spark, a detonator of social struggle, in which, particularly in thinking about the Arab Spring, these are movements against police violence. They're not talked about that way, particularly in like liberal institutions or in the West. It's like, oh, democracy and authoritization.
So when the left is talking about Stonewall being the Stonewall riot in 1969, which was one of the first big moments of what is called the queer liberation struggle or the queer Marxist struggle, they say that Stonewall was a riot against the police. Stonewall was about the police. Stonewall was not about being gay. Conservatives miss this point because they don't fucking listen. Stonewall was a riot against police brutality. And that's what Brian Bean is saying here. The police can be used to provoke revolutionary moments.
But what is the spark? It was police violence. In Tunisia, Mohamed Bouazizi, who self-immolated himself in December 2010, he was harassed by the police and beat up by them, and that's what sparked his protest.
Yep.
Before he encountered the police, he had been met by the police on the streets many times, and he was reported as telling his cousin, I can't breathe anymore, which again connects to the famous statement of George Floyd and Eric Garner. In Egypt, a lot of the organizing that led to the Egyptian Revolution of 2011 came from organizing around Khalid Said, who was a young Egyptian man who was murdered by the police. In Syria, the arrest and torture of a series of teens for writing graffiti on the wall in Daraa was one of the things that sparked the Syrian Revolution. So when you organize against anything, you're going to encounter the police. And the police violence itself is a social detonator. Lesson three is that if you're going to organize against the police, you're going to organize against the state. In Egypt, the organizing around Khalid.
If you're going to organize against the police, you're going to organize against the state, because the police are the protectors of the capitalist state. Are Antifa and Queer Marxists the same group or separate? They are separate groups, but there will be overlap between those groups. But there is also a different arm within Queer Marxism that's called the Bashback movement. And that is also separate from Antifa. The Bashback movement is a militant, queer, violent movement within the queer Marxist far left. There will be overlap between Bashback and Antifa. There will be overlap between queer Marxists and Antifa. Like, some people will be in both. But largely speaking, we have to treat these as separate things because they are separate. Like, they just function as separate things. Antifa is a very specific type of militant leftist reactionary. Bashback is a very specific type of militant leftist radicals. And then queer Marxism, there are people who are queer Marxists that are neither in Bashback nor in Antifa, but they believe in these militant dystopian ideals about upending capitalist society and capitalism being a cultural phenomenon and pushing back against normativity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really good question. The answer is a little bit more nuanced. And these are, listen, you're Moon Goddess, you've been jumping into the deep end of the fucking pool lately. We're going to get into all this stuff. Just give it time, but keep asking questions. You're asking very good questions, and I know you're trying to figure it out. But you're going to see all this stuff play out. And obviously I have a back catalog of content that you can see this stuff in action.
Saeed around justice for his murder, came to the large protests in January of 2011. That the initial demands was for the fall of basically the police minister. So they wanted the change in the police minister. The context of the other revolt spreading, of Tunisia, of people's aspirations raising, went from the demand being we want the change of the head of the police to we want the whole regime to fall. So we see that people say, well, if we actually want to get rid of the police, because the things we were talking about earlier, actually we're talking about getting rid of the whole system of regimes. And I think then the other lesson, which I think is one that is actually really, really relevant to how we talk about reforms and alternatives now, is that in these contexts, it wasn't the case where people made up alternatives to the police and that these alternatives crowded out the police and pushed them to the fore. It was the inverse. The mass movement literally ran the police off the streets. The respondents that I interviewed in Syria and in Egypt said that in those cases, literally the police were taking off their uniforms as they were running home. The cups of tea were still undrink and they had to flee in response to these mass movements. So they disappeared in Oaxaca after the major protests against the first instance of police violence. The police stayed in their headquarters or went to the outskirts. The same thing in South Africa and Russia. All these, the police literally were sort of pushed away. So what happens then? What happens then is that then we have the space and in some cases the resources to make the actual alternatives to ensure that we are able to feed each other, that we're able to mitigate and handle conflict, to take care of each other. And in all these instances, and all of them in the end failed, we should be clear about that, but in all these instances we see these tremendous experiments in new non-carceral forms of courts, of people, in all of them, basically people were able to live free, like rent was sort of abolished for these periods of time. And in all these instances with the police off the street, all the people who...
Here's a good question. You guys have studied this longer than I. Would you say the far left has become more loud and more active now versus their activity 5 years ago? They seem active now due to current world events. Antifa was much more militant in 2016, 2017, 2018. Antifa is not as violent now as it was. Now, that's not to say that they are not, that's not to say that the far left is not more active. I don't know how to quantify it because I wasn't studying the far left back in 2020, the first time around. I was doing more low-level leftist stuff. But I will say that the far left has been much more active since Trump has taken office the second time around. But it is very striking to me that and by the way, I've talked to people I've talked to journalists who were actually covering Antifa back in the day, during the heyday of the first Trump presidency. And they said the same thing. They're like, like the people that were covering Antifa during the first Trump presidency, they look at like Antifa in Portland, or what is supposedly Antifa in Portland, and they're like, this is nothing compared to what we had to deal with back in the day. But that's not to say they're not going to get more violent. I think we are going to see an increase in violence. I think we're going to see it this summer. You have to remember that, like, during the Biden years, they're really, like, the far left was not, I won't say they weren't organizing, because they're always organizing, they're always doing something, but like I feel like they're starting to ramp up now again. And I feel like a lot of the people who are involved in Antifa, like back in 2016, are probably just like too old to do this shit now. And the younger ones aren't as violent yet. But that's not to say they're not going to get violent. I do think they're going to get violent, and I think it's just like a matter of time. But that is a great question, and it's something that's like really good to think about.
I interviewed who were a part of this said that those moments were the times in their life they felt the most safe. And that, I mean, this was in interviews that I didn't ask that question. I'd say, did you feel safe at the time? But at a certain point in interviewing people who were involved in Oaxaca, who were involved in dairy, who were involved in Tunisia and Egypt and Syria, at some point in the interview, they said, yes, it was those times when the police were disappeared from the streets, ran home. At those times, they felt the most safe. And that I really hold, because that connects with everything we've been talking about before, about the notion of safety and policing, and that people in these moments of struggle that have been so picked that it either cleared liberated territory where people organized themselves, took down regimes who existed for decades, or even challenged the system of capitalism itself, as in Russia in 1970. All those people are like, this is where I felt most safe, when the police are not on the streets. But we, in struggle, in solidarity, were able to organize in community to take care of each other. And that we had access to the resources because they weren't guarded by
no hierarchy. The left is a non-hierarchical, decentralized organization. There is no hierarchy.
By the police. And we have to contend with them to be able to begin to refashion society in a better way. And they didn't get to the end in all of those, but people began. And those moments of possibility I find so inspiring, because it cuts against, I think, kind of a pessimism that is understandable when we think about the horizons being, well, can I just cut the police budget by 5% and not hire new officers, right? We're talking about bigger situations and bigger possibilities that have been tried before, and people have gone further before and have gone further in conditions and situations that were actually more difficult than ours in some ways. And I find that tremendously inspiring.
Yeah, I think it really speaks to the power of struggle to change how we relate to each other as human beings, just to change the very foundations of sociality, how we build relationships with one another, how we relate to each other, what we think of each other, how we support and protect each other, and how kind of building towards a different vision of the world literally kind of almost kind of undercuts some of the material conditions that then give rise to harm and violence in society. So I loved how in your book you didn't romanticize this, but you did talk about how, you know, these moments of struggle were also moments where certain types of harmful ways of relating to each other didn't totally disappear, but certainly they went down, and people felt safer, and people felt able to step into different ways of relating to each other and simply being human and being free in the world that were unprecedented. And it was kind of struggle and solidarity that was at the heart of that. And yeah, I thought that was a really powerful part of your book. So that's it from me. That's all my questions. What a fruitful conversation, though. It's absolutely been a wonderful, wonderful evening. I'm so glad to have been able to have this conversation with you. I guess, actually, no, I'm going to rewind a little bit. I do actually have one more question, which is kind of a bit of a selfish question related to kind of my context, which is that we're in the midst of new electoral projects. We've got the Green Party that is surging in the polls under the leadership of Zach Polansky, and then we've got the experiments with a new socialist formation under the banner of your party. One of the arguments that is often made in our movements is we should avoid radical politics because that's going to put people off. and it's going to mean that, we can't win people to our side. And I think one of the things that's really stuck with me about what you've argued is that actually a socialist horizon is going to require some kind of confrontation with the police. It always has done. The miners' struggles, the strikes of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the environmental protection movement, the Palestine solidarity movement, any time where working class people, where ordinary people take a step towards liberation and freedom, we're met with violence, we're met with carceral systems, we're met with the violence of policing. So as a final question, what do you have to say to people in the movement who say, well, don't talk about abolition, that's not important, that's not relevant to the working class, they're not going to be won by these ideas? What do you have to say to those people?
I mean, in the US context, particularly, movements against police violence have been the largest movements in our country's history. And so the notion that that's a fringe issue is like a ridiculous thing. And like I mentioned the poll before, it's like, what does it mean where the majority of Americans are for an insurrectionary act, burning down a police station, as opposed to the two politicians? And so I think particularly in the US context, movements against police violence is a...
So the goal is to create a situation, to provoke a situation in which more Americans are in favor of burning down the police station than they are in voting for one of the two major parties. Listen.
A ridiculous thing. And like I mentioned the poll before, it's like, what does it mean where...
This is okay, so Liberty is new. We appreciate Liberty being here. Do you think that reading these books will be worth the time? Well, it all depends on how crazy you want to drive yourself. I personally do not read their books. I just watch their presentations about the book, so I get the basic mise en scène of the most important points that they're making. Mizakan, if you follow Mizakan on Twitter, Mizakan does read their books. And Mizakan does a great service for all of us by reading their books and telling us the most important parts of their books so that we can see it for ourselves. I would say that if you are new to this, trying to read their books right now, probably not the best use of your time. What I would instead do is just listening to their presentations is hard enough, to be honest. Like wading through their books, some of their books, I can't even read because it's so socialist in its content. I'm like, I start reading it and my eyes start glazing over and I start kind of falling asleep immediately. So it's kind of like Mizakan is like a beast. Mizakan is doing the work for us. That's not to say that other people can't, though. I would love to get Mizakan some comrades in that regard. If you want to do that, if you're inspired to do that, I would totally do it. Average Person just linked his Twitter profile in the chat if you want to follow him, because he is doing the Lord's fucking work, man. But if you're new here, I would say no, don't drive yourself insane by reading their stuff. I think it's perfectly acceptable to watch them talk about the books and present about the books and discuss the books to be able to get a sense of their ideas.
The majority of Americans are for an insurrectionary act, burning down a police station, as opposed to the two politicians. And so I think particularly in the US context, movements against police violence is a bread and butter issue because it is so prevalent and present. And I think you see that in other sort of poll ways. I think the way that this argument is deployed in the US with other electoral projects is the same thing. It's like, okay, we need to focus on bread and butter issues. And that means we don't talk about the police, and defund is unpopular. That's what they say. And if you look at just poll numbers, you see something that's a very different story. So polling around defund is a minority of the population. But part of that is because there was a full court press done to roll back the gains of the 2020 rebellion that the Democratic Party was at the head of. Barack Obama came out Biden came out and said, no, defund is an irresponsible demand.
I'm
right?
sorry. I don't think this is useful. I just don't think this is useful. We care about what they are saying today. We care about what they are doing today. I don't think it's useful to go back and study philosophy that may or may not have any relevance. I'm going to be honest. I have never heard a single communist mention this. I have never seen this in a communist bookstore. I've never seen a communist zine about this. So while you might think it's influential because you are reading it and you are seeing things that you think align, that doesn't mean what you are reading is actually inspiring them. It doesn't mean they've even read the thing that you're reading. The communists and socialists are very upfront with what they believe and where they get their ideas. They have entire bookstores where they say, go read this book, go read that book. They have book clubs, they have educational classes, they have entire fucking zine libraries. That in the zines they tell you what books they're reading. And so if they are not specifically mentioning a book, I don't think it's relevant. If they're not mentioning a piece of philosophy, I don't think it's relevant. And just because you might think it's relevant, it can really be confusing for people because you might be seeing things that aren't there, because if they haven't even read the things that you are reading, then obviously those things didn't actually inspire their actions. So that's my kind of thoughts on that.
This was trumpeted then on all the press. The Republicans are doing their doom and gloom apocalypse, racist dog whistling stuff too. And so you see that the word defund is less popular. But when you poll people on things like, would you prefer to spend some of the police money on mental health funding? A preponderance, Democrats and Republicans say, yes, we do want that. Polls about, do we think that more policing is going to solve things or increase social spending is going to do things? Both Democrats and Republicans, the majority of people. And so I think there's this notion that policing is not a bread and butter issue, which doesn't match up, because people are concerned with mental health crisis. People are concerned with questions around crime, which always polls high as far as what the concerns are. How we reframe that about notions of safety is how we get to it. And like there was a Jacobin study that I think that has been tried to use to say we should only focus on bread and butter issues here in the United States. And one of the things that was notable about that is they made a divide between working class people and non-working class people to make the argument that working class people were only for bread and butter demands. This is an interesting thing in the study they don't highlight, which is that so-called like cultural issues, which they included like abortion and LGBTQ, that working class people polled in some cases less than non-working class people. Policing was the exception. Policing was the thing that particularly variegated by race. You found that more consistently working class people were concerned about policing. And so I think some of these arguments that I would sort of raise, but just that, in a system.
He means like kitchen table issues, like conservatives might call it kitchen table issues. They don't really call themselves Jacobins. Don't read too much into that. That probably means making maps without borders.
System in which you have police on every street. You see the huge expenditure that goes to their tools and their weapons and their violence. It's like, that's not a fringe issue, but it's one that people encounter in some cases every day of their lives. And if you look at movements in the US, in the UK, and internationally, you see that movements against police violence are often the ones, and here I'll cite the examples that I just mentioned before in the previous question. These are the ones that actually move society even more so than something like, I don't know, free transit or something like that. You see this if you look at case after case after case.
Jacobin's
so I think that the notion of presence of violence and the undemocratic character of these police forces, I think, do the work for us, and I would sort of point to that.
Yeah, and I think just my final point is what was remarkable for me about the resistance to ICE in Minneapolis was how, oftentimes people who are proponents of that argument say that we need to focus on bread and butter issues, but also we need to focus on traditional working class institutions like the trade unions. And actually in Minneapolis, the question of a general strike was being raised in response to police violence in
Right.
response to carceral violence. And that for me was just remarkable, that these trade unions
I gotta
were
work on
booked
my
into
book later.
action over carceral violence. And it really just underscored for me.
I'm very motivated to actually finish my fucking book about all of this stuff that I've been trying to write for like a year and a half. So we're going into book writing mode soon.
How exactly what you said, policing is a bread and butter issue. It is and always has been a class issue. One of the things that you talk about in your book is how early resistance to policing was always rooted in kind of working class communities who were the targets of that policing, and that continues to this day. So yeah, we'll finish there. I think policing is a bread and butter issue. Let's all fight the power.
Thanks so much.
All right, we made it through. Yeah, I mean, the first couple months of the year were weird because of all the anti-ICE stuff. So all of our shit got like thrown up. We had to adjust. We had to adapt quickly. That's okay, though. That's okay. We can refocus. Holy shit. Okay, we're done. That was a long-ass class. One in the chat, if you learned something new today that you did not know before you watched this video with me. 2 in the chat, if you did not learn anything new and this was a giant waste of time. Aw, thank you, Sarah with an H. I appreciate that. I hope you left a review on Amazon. That'd be rad. Lots of ones. Lots of ones. Awesome. Hey, guys, can you do me a favor? Can you all do me a favor? Now, I know that Sarah Fields has blocked most of you, but if everyone replies to this tweet and thanks me for the class and talks about how much they learned today, I will retweet you. If you retweet this tweet and tag Sarah in it, even if you're blocked by her, still tag Sarah is censored and say something to the effect of, hey, Sarah, go fuck yourself. We learned more from Karlyn today than we learned from you. Like eat our entire ass, or like whatever. You can wordsmith that. You don't need to say that directly, but like reply to it and quote tweet it and tag the ever loving fuck out of Sarah is censored. She's gonna love this. This is really gonna make her day. Because listen, man, listen. Well, people like Sarah, it doesn't matter if she's gonna see it because she's gonna. I promise you, she'll see it. I promise you, she'll see it. Partially because if you quote tweet me, I will retweet you. But like, really, say glowing things. Quote tweet it and say, listen, Sarah, Karlyn taught me more today than you have like ever. And we learned a lot of the presentation we watched today. Well, you were whining and complaining on Twitter. So literally fuck off, Sarah. No one cares what you have to say. Say whatever you want. Tag her, even if she's blocked. I promise you she's going to see it because I'll make sure of that. Anyway, guys, and I have her blocked and she's still looking at my feed all day. So, a little bit of a rocky class today, but that's okay. You know, that's okay. Hey, thanks, Regina. I really do appreciate that. I hope people learned a lot about the abolish the police stuff. This was actually not the craziest presentation we've ever seen from Brian Bean, but I do think it was a good one. Guys, I will be back tomorrow and we will do it all over again. And that's all we have. Guys, I really want to thank everyone who sent in a channel membership. We have how many new channel members today? 132. 132 new channel members today. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you to everyone who sent in a super chat. I really do. Oh, movie night. Oh my God. I totally fucking forgot. Guys, if you are a supporter in my community, you can join us for movie night in 15 minutes. It will be in the supporter Discord. Mac B is watching the original 1954 version of Animal Farm. I've never seen it. I'm actually very excited about this. Thank you for the reminder that it is movie night tonight. I will be posting out the link. I posted out the link to the Discord yesterday, but I will post it out again right now to invite people to movie night. Hey, Jump the Shark, thank you for the channel membership. Come and join us in the supporter Discord in 15 minutes to watch the original 50s version of Animal Farm. It's going to be awesome. And if you're not joining us for that, I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for allowing me to do what I do. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for not giving in to conservative retardation and bullshit on Twitter. I really appreciate it. We've got important things to do here. While the conservatives whine and cry and they make every excuse for why they can't do something, we just focus. That's all we're going to do. I will see you at movie night, guys. I'm going to try to stop by for a little bit. I will see you tomorrow for the stream at 5 o'clock. And that's it. That's it. That's all she wrote. Take care, guys. We'll see you.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.